With a piercing light, a gate opens right in the middle of the city. A loudspeaker alerts the city's residents that the main enemy has emerged from the gates and that they need to evacuate. But he also adds that there is nothing to worry about and the main character Jin will be able to deal with the enemy, and everyone will be saved. The main demon appears from the gate, and our hero will fight against him. And so the rivals met, and the main antagonist is more than confident in his abilities. The warrior in the form of the main character dared to come to this duel alone, and such self-confidence only amuses the main opponent. Jin has dedicated most of his life to heroism, and death no longer scares him at all. Besides, he had already lost the person he wanted to protect most. This close person bequeathed to Jin to save the world, so he continues to fight. He easily defeats the villain, but asks him for a favor. Jin doesn't want heroic glory. He's already lost everything. He just wants to die. Unable to refuse such an offer, the demon kills the hero, being on his last breath. He won't have to hold the hated sword in his hands anymore. Finally, peace. Or not. Jin wakes up to find a man standing over him. He is so much larger than the hero that he mistakes him for a giant. While trying to fight off the giant, Jin notices that his arms have become much smaller. The hero hears a woman next to his current opponent call him Riley. But why not Jean? Could these be childhood memories that flash through his mind before he dies? This thought disappears after Riley now learns that he is the youngest son of the great swordsman Finn Eiplet. And as if on cue, Count Ippolita himself appears. He has come to perform the blessing of the sword over Riley. Is this some kind of mockery? The mere mention of a sword leaves Riley stunned. What can we say about the ritual itself, during which several swords were hung directly above the child? In an attempt to defend himself, Riley stretches his arms up, but everyone present perceives this as a desire to pick up a sword. But Riley hates them and has vowed never to touch them. Will it work? We move forward 19 years to the Eiplet family. The same giant who turned out to be the family's servant is resting in the tavern. He witnesses a conversation between two visitors who are discussing the future choice of the heir to the famous family of swordsmen. During the discussion, it turns out that the eldest son, named Lion, is already a famous monster slayer. The middle son, named Lloyd, stands out for his speed and agility. He is even able to cut raindrops in mid-air. They don't even want to talk about the youngest son, our main character. People consider him lazy and untalented. Jan, the same servant, is unable to leave this conversation without his intervention. He believes that the young gentleman is very talented and will still show everyone what he is capable of. While Ian is arguing with the tavern's patrons, Riley is lying under a tree and cooling off. He is nostalgic about his past life, seeing hamburgers in the clouds and remembering cola. This nostalgia takes him back to the moment when he first picked up the sacred sword in his past life. From that moment on, only the shell of a warrior remained from Jin. People did not want to see the real him. Because of this, Riley repeats again like a mantra that she will never pick up a sword again. He is found doing this by Jan, who has returned from the tavern. He gives the young master instructions, trying to get him to take up fencing. Riley denies it in every way possible. There is no point in convincing people that he is lazy, because it is true. This drives Yana crazy. Riley tries to convey to him that he shouldn't pay attention to other people's conversations. During lunch, John continues to push his line. This time he tries to get his point across to Riley's mother, Madame Iris. She agrees that her son is obviously talented, but she simply wishes her son happiness, even without a sword. He started talking when he was only 1 year old. At 2, Yang noticed his strong mana. A little later, Riley learned to read and read all the difficult literature in the house. While Ian tries to lure Iris to his side, the dinner continues. With such protection, the youngest son will never have to take up a sword. As soon as this thought flashes through Riley's mind, his mother begins to cough up blood. Iris falls to the floor. The butler Jan runs to her aid. Riley is also distraught. He doesn't understand what's happening to his mother. While Ian is fussing over the fallen woman and trying to stop her bleeding, Riley notices a woman in the doorway. This red-haired one is the first wife of Count I. Pellet, and her name is Orly. He blames her for the fact that the Countess deprived him of a peaceful life. At this time, Jan reports that he was able to stop the bleeding, but it is still necessary to call a doctor. In response, Riley sends the butler to find a doctor, while he stays behind to provide first aid to his mother. Despite Jan's doubts, he reminds him that at the age of 5 he read all the treatises on medicine. Calling out to Ian as he leaves, Riley asks him to bring him a wooden sword. While the butler searches for a doctor, the youngest son of the Eiplet family provides first aid to his mother. He had already done everything possible, and at this point Jan returned with the doctor. The doctor states that the poisoning was not fatal and the lady should recover. However, the poison spreads throughout the body. However, her health is currently no longer in danger. Riley finds it strange because his mother is supposedly in a stable condition, despite the fact that she was bleeding from the mouth before. He decides to discuss this with Ian, and they agree that the attempt on the lady's life was most likely deliberate. While Jan went to get a doctor, he managed to arrange the arrest of the maid who served food to the family. But for now they cannot guess who is guilty. The butler launches into an apology to the young master for failing to keep an eye on the meal, which resulted in his mother suffering. However, Riley reminds him of the world he supposedly dreamed of. And he introduces Yana to the phrase, "Don't wake up trouble while it's quiet," clearly hinting at himself. At this point, the young gentleman, armed with a sword, departs, leaving his mother in the care of his butler. Riley just wanted to live a carefree life with the person he cared about. However, even in this life, he and his happiness were attacked again. And he seems to already understand who did it, so he finds Mrs. Orly and gets into a verbal altercation with her. She also states that he is behaving strangely because she, the mistress of the castle, takes care of everyone here. To which Riley finds it strange that she smells like the soup his poisoned mother ate. Orly doesn't find anything strange here, since she was just in the kitchen before the meal was served to this half of the family. She also notes that it would be better for the guy to sit quietly, which is what he has been doing for all 19 years of his life. After all, according to a certain sign, perhaps invented by Orly herself, sudden death can overtake someone who tries to change something. Night falls and the red-haired countess and the man in black robes discuss his current task. In the evening, he was supposed to follow Riley, which is what he actually did. The young master was training with a sword in the courtyard and was not doing very well, since he did not even know how to hold it correctly. Orly mocks the young master and gives his henchman the task of going to his quarters to get rid of him. She thinks it will be easy as pie, which is at odds with the assassin. Even though he thought Riley was completely harmless, he still caught himself thinking that the young master understood that he was being watched. It's as if he's just waiting for the right moment to trap the observer. But his thoughts are interrupted by Orly, who orders the assassin to get to work. He moves to the corridor closest to Riley's room and is already preparing to enter his chambers, but Riley finds him first. Immediately after training, he headed to his chambers and was already waiting for a visitor. The uninvited guest is surprised that he did not sense the presence of the young master, and the latter immediately attacks him with his wooden sword. The assassin manages to get back from the sword strike and Riley hits the floor with it, leaving a huge dent from the blow. This is surprising to the attacker because it takes a lot of force to deliver such a blow. Riley accuses the clumsy assassin of being inattentive and quickly attacks him again. He came to kill the master on the orders of Madame Orly. This takes the killer by surprise, as Riley clearly wasn't supposed to know about this. Mrs. Orly spent a lot of money on the services of a mercenary, and he is not even able to withstand a wooden sword. This provokes Riley. Only at this point does the assassin notice that the sword is actually wooden. While he is in a state of shock, Riley uses the same wooden sword to knock the dagger that was supposed to be the murder weapon out of his hands. Left without a weapon, the assassin realizes that he is facing his death. The next morning, while chilling with Riley's book, Ian reports that a body has been found on the estate. He jokes that he was thinking about something more serious. Jan brings him down to earth, because despite the fact that the Count and his family have many enemies, the assassin could not simply sneak into the castle. The attacker died because his neck was broken. Moreover, his body was found right in front of Lady Orley's room. At the same time, Mrs. Iris is still suffering from the effects of poisoning, and her husband has already found out about it. Ian tries to get Riley to understand that now is not the time to relax, and that maybe he should pick up more than just a wooden sword. He clearly doesn't know what happened that night. Jan doesn't know if there are any more assassins in the estate, and is worried that the young master won't be able to stand up for himself. He interrupts him, assuring him that he can handle self-defense, and the butler had better keep an eye on his mother, who definitely can't defend herself. And to prove that he's not just sitting around doing nothing, Riley hands Ian a list of herbs to make a healing potion for his mother. While Jan goes to carry out his young master's orders, the latter is going to take care of more important matters, which are clearly connected to his bloody wooden sword and assassin's dagger lying behind his bed. After the day has passed, Count Ippolita gathers his two eldest sons in his study and asks them about the results of the search in the estate. Not only did they not find anyone, they also did not find the weapon that the assassin was supposed to come with. However, since there was no weapon, it meant that he arrogantly dared to appear at the estate of the great swordsman empty-handed. This makes it seem as if someone inside the house was helping him and letting him in. Hearing all this conversation, Lady Orley is unable to contain her excitement, but she carefully tries to hide it. She knows that the assassin had a dagger, and does not understand where it went, but she can judge that it is clearly in the possession of one of the estate's residents. Riley is doing his usual things, which means it's time to lie under a tree in the yard. While doing this, he is found by Jan, who tells him that the decoction really helped, and Iris is already much better. While Riley plans to go back to sleep, Ian still expresses his bewilderment and tries to convince the young master that it is time to take up the sword. You don't have to just give in to your older brothers. The young gentleman knows how to lose and does not want to fight or take any part in this struggle. On the contrary, he wants to enjoy the ripe fruits of the apple tree, under which he loves to rest, and asks Jan to pick him a few of them. When the butler raises his head, he immediately notices a dagger lying on the top branch. It glistens in the sun and catches his attention, just as Riley had planned. The young master pretends not to understand what his butler is staring at, but he knocks the dagger off the tree with a stone, perplexed as to how it ended up there. While examining the find, he realizes that the dagger has the same symbolism as the scabbard of the murdered assassin. Under the light of the full moon, a cart with people in black clothes moves along the night road. They are discussing number 3, who may have committed suicide. However, this is still unknown. His body was left at Ipellet's estate, and this could cause problems for Mrs. Orley. The entire column of carts travels to the village of Ipa, to which the second passenger of the cart reacts with surprise. Does the gentleman really intend to personally deal with the problem and try to remain unnoticed? He intends to do everything quickly and secretly as his daughter needs help. Meanwhile, Orley is still beside himself with nerves. Her mercenary lost his dagger and then died so stupidly. The weapon has already been found and delivered to the head of the family. Lady Orley is extremely worried about this. Only when she is alone can she give free rein to her emotions, but her discontent is interrupted by a knock on the door. This is her youngest son, Lloyd. The lady was already afraid that Riley had come, but her son had come only to find out if everything was okay with his mother. She reassures her son that everything is fine, but Lloyd notices that she looks extremely worried and reminds him that the killer was found right in front of her door. This makes him worry, so the young man will guard her chambers himself. To raise the lady's spirits a little, he tells her that her father's manufactory has arrived in the village of Ipa, and it really lifts the lady's spirits. She assumes that they know about the death of their employee. Orley thanks her son for bringing her such important news. The woman hopes that her father has arrived. After all, if this is so, then everything will go like clockwork. The professional assassin won't let her enemies survive so easily this time. Riley, as always, is cooling off under the tree. He hears the assassins communicating with each other via telepathy as they prepare to attack the house. This time there are many more of them, and they are working on a plan to attack the estate. The young gentleman hoped that he would not have to get his hands dirty and would only need to show the dagger to his father. But unfortunately, the first blow will not fall on the estate. Despite the fact that the assassins' only task is to capture the body of their dead comrade and get out, Riley decides to intervene in the conversation. He also has telepathy and interferes with the conversations in the assassin's voice channel. Riley doesn't intend to understand their plans, but he really doesn't want them to force him to interfere and cross him. He forbids them to enter the estate. The young master's message was heard by all members of the guild. This greatly surprises the commander-in-chief of the assassins, since only people of their profession possess telepathy. There should be no assassins in the Eiplet estate. However, they do not respond to the young master's warning properly, and the red-haired assassin is about to take the dagger. He sends most of the team to capture the body, and the rest to distract the residents of the estate. Assassins must not surrender alive and leave behind evidence. Several assassins have already made their way to Lady Iris and intend to kill her at the personal request of Lady Orly. They cannot disobey her order. They know that the youngest son, Riley, is extremely harmless and doesn't even know how to handle a sword. If they can complete the task as expected, the team will be promoted. Their thoughts about a happy future are interrupted by Riley, who reminds the assassins that he forbade them from coming to the estate. A young gentleman appears right in their path, armed with a short sword and a rope. Riley playfully calls the assassins children who broke an adult's rules. They recognize in him the master of the lazy sword, about whom they were warned. They don't consider him a serious opponent and immediately rush at the guy. One of the assassins attacks Riley from behind, while the other goes invisible. The same one who attacked Riley from behind immediately receives a blade in the shoulder area. He did not notice the young master's movement and was extremely surprised by it. Riley reminds him that he asked not to cross his path, and now he will have to kill the assassins. They will fall at the hands of the one they call the master of the lazy sword. With one blow, he finishes off an assassin who already had his blade in him. The second assassin is surprised by the seemingly impossible task of killing a man with one blow. And this is the weakest target they were warned about. Were they lied to or underestimated the young master? Riley interrupts his thoughts and informs him that none of the assassins will leave this house alive. His opponent becomes enraged by such statements and quickly attacks Riley. However, he asks him not to make noise and, as a warning, cuts off his hand with the dagger. The quickly lost confidence forces the assassin to try to retreat, but he gets stabbed in the back by Riley and also dies. Having ended the battle on a victorious note, Riley sets out to find the remaining assassins. At the same time, Ian and Sarah fight off a crowd of assassins. For swordmasters like these two butlers, low-level assassins are not serious opponents. With one swing of his sword, Yang cuts two attackers in half. He leaves Sarah to protect Lady Iris's chambers while he goes in search of the young master. He always knew how to hide well, and this time Jan also hopes for this ability of his. On the way, he meets another opponent, who seems to him more serious than the previous ones. Jan warns the uninvited guest that he had better leave the estate if he wants to stay alive. However, he silently raises his blade, inviting John into battle. They get into a fight, during which the assassin did not utter a word. Yang is enraged by the assassin's poor skills and dispatches him with a series of blows from his sword. However, he dodges well and is already aiming at the stomach, Jan's open weak spot, as a familiar blade flew into his shoulder. Taking advantage of this moment, the butler finishes off the assassin and continues on his way to search for Mr. Riley. However, he did not even think about where the unexpected help came from and did not look behind his back. And yet his goal was so close. Riley was standing right behind him, but he was aiming for the assassin's heart, not his shoulder. He is coolly surprised by his miss, but he quickly changes his mind, thinking that he hasn't trained for 19 years, and his body is no longer the same as in his past life. Pleased with his work, Riley returns to his role as an aristocrat who supposedly knows nothing about the attack. He heads to his favorite spot and sits there in a tree when Ian finds him. Riley jokes that there was some kind of assassin attack again. Jan doesn't take this as a joke and thinks that the gentleman is already aware. However, Riley tries to feign surprise, which he does extremely poorly. But nevertheless, the butler is glad that the young master is okay and is afraid that he might get hurt next time. Therefore, she asks him not to be left alone with himself. He informs Riley that he and Sarah have killed around 15 assassins. When Riley asks what's wrong with his mother, Ian replies that she's under Sarah's care, which means she's definitely okay. At the same time, he is touched by how caring and concerned Riley is as a young man. At this point, they return back to the estate. Ian moves through the corridors with the utmost care, trying to protect Riley from any danger. Despite the fact that Riley has already cleared the entire area of assassins, he prefers to play along with Ian. Seizing the moment, the young gentleman shows the suspicious find to his butler. He hands him a crumpled, dirty piece of paper, and Jan very reluctantly takes it into his hands. After carefully examining the paper that Riley found, the butler finds on it a recipe for poisoned soup, which Mrs. Iris tasted a few days ago. To his surprise and disappointment, he discovers that the handwriting is suspiciously similar to that of Madame Orly, and he suspects that she was the poisoner. At this time, the last remaining assassin in the house meets with the head of the family. The last one left could only be the strongest, and that was Lady Orly's father, the same red-haired assassin commander-in-chief. He engages in combat with Finn Epaulet, but instead of attacking him in return, he merely dodges. The assassin is already all wounded and just wants to leave here, since he has already obtained the dagger of his dead teammate. The prepared smoke bomb should light up in 2 minutes, and the assassin only has to make it through this time to leave the estate and save his daughter. But the head of the house is not as benevolent as the assassin might think. He strikes him blow after blow, and the assassin can only defend himself and dodge. The strongest swordsman accuses him of this, imbuing his sword with mana in order to deliver the finishing blow. The assassin understands the great danger he is in. However, their battle is interrupted by Ian appearing in the doorway. He informs the head of the house that they have found out who poisoned his second wife. And on the threshold, along with him, appears his first wife, Lady Orly. The fight stops, and both men are extremely surprised that this woman is there. Finn leaves the assassin to bleed out in the same room, not for a second afraid that he might escape or attack him in return. Now it is more important for the elder Epaulet to find out why Jan believes that his first wife is to blame for everything, and the butler provides him with evidence. Finn also recognizes his wife's handwriting on that ill-fated note and becomes furious. Lady Orly can no longer keep her face. Riley returns to her mother's chambers and waits for her to wake up. He reasons that Jan has probably already passed the evidence to his father, and that the culprit will soon be punished. His thoughts are interrupted by Iris waking up, worried that her son may be injured, but he is fine. They discuss the appearance of assassins in their house, and the woman only cares that her son is okay, which Riley can't help but be happy about. He is also glad that his mother was not hurt. The sweet scene of family happiness is interrupted by Jan, who returned from negotiations with the head of the Epauletan house. He informs everyone in the room, including Sarah's maid, that it was decided that Lady Orly was the poisoner. Everyone in the room is shocked. Lady Iris cannot believe that her, even though she is a rival, could do this to her. But Ian can't keep the secret from her and tells her that the note Riley found contained a recipe for poison, written in the handwriting of the red-haired woman. Such strong emotions make Lady Iris feel ill again. Even though she knew Orly didn't treat her very well, she still couldn't believe that she would put her life in danger. Riley asks Ian where his father is and learns that he is currently discussing what happened with the poisoner and the intruder. Lady Orly's father reveals his identity to Count Epaulet. He is shocked by the family he has gotten involved with and understands why the assassin dodged him instead of attacking him. Finn accuses the attacker of disgracing his own daughter, but this same daughter accuses Count Epaulet of the opposite, saying that the only one who disgraced her was himself. It was then, when another woman appeared on their estate, whom the Count took as his wife, that Orly felt most disgraced. She understood how he had grown cold towards his first wife, and she envied the fact that all the attention went to Iris, her rival. And she would have continued her tearful monologue if Finn hadn't interrupted her, putting her in her place. Orly never needed a caring and loving husband, and Finn as a person in general. She was only interested in his last name and his noble place in society. At first, Lady Orly was content to simply bear the name of Epaulet, but then her appetite grew. Now it all led to her setting assassins on her own home. This enrages Finn, and he drives the family away from his estate. They walk away through the forest, and Orly, upset, complains to her father that all their dreams are gone. How she wishes it was a dream. The father tries to support his daughter and is happy that at least they are both alive. But for how long? After all, on their way they meet Riley, who does not want to just let go of those who caused so much suffering to his mother and his family as a whole. The failed assassin does not understand what brought the youngest son of the family here, and he wants to avenge his mother. Lady Orly cannot bear his presence. She rushes at Riley with insults and is about to hit her, but he hits her where it hurts. Her father won't like it if he comes back beaten. The assassin stops his daughter and intends to strike the arrogant youth himself. Moreover, he still had some part of the team that was not killed in the estate. He sets them on Riley, thinking they can handle the guy. Riley hadn't planned on attacking his step-grandfather, since at least today he hadn't managed to do anything bad to him. Until now. However, this does not apply to Orly, because she attempted on his mother's life twice, and this is unforgivable. The assassins, hiding in the bushes, attack the young master, but he dodges all attacks. Just like from the attack of his step-grandfather, who is now also on bad terms with him. This fight reminds Riley of the old days when he also fought against assassins. But then he was a naive and kind youth who considered them to be the same people as everyone else, and he pardoned those who attacked him. This resulted in the death of a loved one. Now he will not make the same mistake and, citing legitimate self-defense, strikes back at the assassins, killing them all with one swing of his blade. After creating a bloodbath, Riley hints to the two surviving members of Tess's house that they are in for a rough ride. The seasoned assassin is surprised at how quickly and easily the young master dealt with all of his remaining minions. Riley prepares to grant him a quick death. The step-grandfather falls to his knees and begs for mercy, not for himself, but for his daughter. Until the end, remaining a good father, he tries to beg the young master for forgiveness for Orly, but he is adamant. Both red-haired criminals meet death from a wooden lazy sword. After dealing with everyone, Riley notices that his hands are shaking. He still refers to the fact that he has been resting for 19 years. But now he has dealt with what was bothering him and no longer plans to give in to emotions and rest any longer. At this point, Riley decides to return to the estate. The night passes, and the first rays of the sun break through, when Sarah and Yana have already scoured the entire estate in search of the youngest son of the House of Epaulet. They are worried that the assassins might have kidnapped the young master, but Ian hopes that Riley is still hiding somewhere. However, he is nowhere in the house, and this gives them terrible thoughts. They set off to make their rounds again. At this point, they are caught by Finn Epaulet, and he is unhappy that Riley has disappeared without anyone notifying him. The butler and maid are terrified that they will have to voice their suspicions to the head of the house. They understand that Riley is already not held in high esteem by his father for his laziness and lack of sword training, and now he has been kidnapped in such a shameful manner. The Count will probably be angry and will not want to let his kidnapped son back into his estate. But Jan doesn't have time to voice his guesses to his master before his youngest son returns home. The butler is so excited by the return of a safe and sound Riley that it is unclear whether he is happy or angry. His father, however, remains cool and invites Riley into his office. Together they leave. In the office, he is also met by the middle son of the House of Epaulet, Lloyd, who is also the son of that same, already dead, first wife. Since it was Riley who found the note, Lloyd suspects that his younger brother forged it to frame his mother. Because of this, she had to leave the estate. Riley pretends not to know about this incident and that Lady Orley was thrown out of the house, and even tries to look upset. This makes Lloyd even more angry, but his father stops him. Finn already has enough evidence that the poisoner was his first wife, and that it was she who let the assassins into the house. Right now, he's only interested in where the note Riley found came from. He decides to confess that he killed the first assassin who got into the house with his own hands. However, he downplays the events a little, saying that he was very scared and, in a fit of self-defense, simply beat the assassin to death. And it was on him that I found a note, which he apparently tried to take from the house as evidence. Lady Orley let both the first and the last assassins into the house. Lloyd sincerely refuses to believe that his mother could do such a thing, but unfortunately, it is true, and that is why she had to be exiled. All questions resolved, Finn sends his sons to their rooms. But before that, he invites his youngest son to an audience with him tomorrow. He agrees and leaves his office. At the exit, he is met by another older brother, Leon, who is also the son of the now-deceased Orley. He ignores Riley and stays near his father's office, waiting for his brother. They discuss what happened in the office, and both doubt that Riley lied about the origin of the note. The eldest son shows greater composure towards his mother and admits that she committed the crime twice. She deserved to be thrown out of the house. Even though she is their mother, she still has no right to commit murder. But Leon still manages to lift his younger brother's spirits a little. An heir to the House of Epaulet will soon be chosen. She and her brother have shown much more involvement in the family business, so their father will obviously be more favorable to them. And then, when the heir is chosen, they will both be able to avenge their mother and restore order to the house. They don't see Riley as a competitor. The next day comes, and today Riley must go to a private meeting with his father. As soon as Yan finds out about this, he immediately begins to preen the young master so that he does not lose face in front of his father. He brings him to such a state that Riley, according to him, even begins to look 10 years younger. Accordingly, now he is 9. Ignoring Riley's caustic remark, the butler tries to convey to him that this may be his last chance to show himself in all his glory to his father, and perhaps plant in his mind the idea that Riley is also worthy of becoming an heir. Riley can't listen to his chatter anymore and goes to see her father. Jan encourages him in every way, and the young gentleman enters Finn's office. He immediately tells his son that it is time for him to get ready for the journey. Not understanding what is being said, Riley receives an invitation that Finn hands him. This is an invitation to the 17th Royal Fencing Tournament, which will take place in a month. No one else can participate in this tournament except him. However, he is more dissatisfied with the wording he heard from his father than with the fact that he was being sent there. After all, in any case, Riley would have refused to participate in the tournament, which his father should already know. However, he says that Riley needs experience, since his brothers have already been to such tournaments. And in all his 19 years, the youngest son never showed any interest. Riley denies it in every possible way and points out to his father that the invitation is actually for him, not for Riley. The father remains adamant, despite the fact that this invitation is an obvious declaration of love for him. He is trying to get his son to agree to this trip. He refuses once again. But Fina is not satisfied with the refusal. Like any conversation about swords, this one has already worn Riley down, and he asks his father not to force him to pick up a weapon again. But the father is confident that he can do it. His father's confidence in him triggers Riley to remember his past life, which makes his current condition even worse. He asks Finn not to look at him like that and not to say such things to him. But this time, refusal is impossible. He is already old enough and is left with no choice. Part of his family is defending this tournament, and his older brothers can no longer go there. Riley moves further back towards the door, trying to put some distance between him and his father. And behind the door stands Ian, listening to them, which is why the door opens from Riley's touch to it. This turns out to be his chance, and he quickly escapes from his father's office. Finn sends Ian to catch up with his youngest son at all costs. But Riley is faster, and now he's hiding in someone's closet. Remembering everything from his past life turns out to be quite a challenge for him. Maybe if he had been born into a family of swordsmen without these memories, it would have been much easier for him. Throughout his 19 years of life, swords have surrounded him everywhere, because even all the servants in the estate own bladed weapons. Sarah's maid enters the room where Riley is hiding, looking for the young master. It turns out that this is the room of his mother, Iris, and she has no idea where her son is hiding. Riley overhears a conversation between the two women and hears Sarah worrying that Riley may not be the heir. This might upset Mrs. Iris. However, she is confident that everything will be fine with her and her son. She doesn't want to sadden her boy, because she notices that he always has some special tiredness in his eyes. No matter how many times she asks him about it, he always refuses and tries to behave normally. This worries her, no matter how lazy and incompetent her son is considered. She will still support and love him, simply because she wants her child to be happy. Breaking off her heartfelt monologue, she sarcastically asks Sarah if she is really tired of her son. Naturally, the maid answers no. But by relieving this momentary tension between them, Iris returns to her normal state. She asks Sarah to help her move to another room. As the maid leaves, Iris knocks on the closet where her son is hiding. After all, she knew all the time that he was there. Riley is surprised that his mother knew where he was all this time. He throws open the closet doors and admits that he just wanted to be alone, for which he apologizes. Iris says that you shouldn't do that because he always hides, but she scolds him not because of his cowardice, but only because everyone was worried, because they did not know where he was. The mother begins to discuss with her son the tournament proposal that his father has put forward to him, and realizes that the boy does not want to go to it. He admits that even the thought of picking up a sword terrifies him, to which Iris suggests an alternative, to accompany him, and Riley agrees to this proposal. He is excited to hit the road with Iris, Ian, and Sarah. They prepare the carriage for a long adventure, but are not sure that this servant will be enough. But Riley and Iris think they're both pretty fast. Count Finn himself comes to see the people off on their journey. He communicates very nicely with his wife, trying to persuade her to stay at home, but she really wants to go on her first trip with her son and asks the Count not to be upset and not to be jealous of her. He lets his beloved wife go on this trip only because this is the only condition under which Riley agreed to go to the tournament. All four travelers say goodbye to the head of the house, who instructs the butlers to always be on guard and closely monitor the safety of their family. As she sets off, Iris calls out Solia, which turns out to be the name of the estate. This estate was once built by Iris's father and was named after him. The family is heading to the city of Solia. The Sir's maid is from there, or to be more precise, from its right part. Solia is so large that it is even called a kingdom in one city. In her story, Sarah mentions that this huge city has something that Riley often mentioned, a drink that is pleasant and tingles on the tongue. Realizing what she means, Riley's inner beast is awakened. In comparison to Riley, this drink was sweet like wine, but not intoxicating, and the young master even called it the drink of the gods. Of course, we are talking about cola, whom Riley adored so much in his past life. The comparisons with wine make Iris think that her son is about to be made drunk, but Ian reassures her that even small children love cola, since it is non-alcoholic. And now Riley is not so against going to Solia. He is even more eager to get there. But as it usually happens, just when Riley had something to be happy about, their crew was attacked. The cart's path is blocked by a crowd of goblins. Sarah and Ian are ready to deal with them. Riley can't wait or hesitate for a second, because his favorite drink is waiting for him in Solia. He watches Sarah's battle with the goblins and notes to himself that she has strong balance and powerful blows. However, it is too slow. At some point in the fight, Sarah makes a mistake and Riley just loses his mind. Riley jumps out of the carriage and snatches the sword from Sarah. She asks him to come back, but he is already on the battlefield. The young gentleman begins to lecture Sarah about her not using her legs during the battle. Armed with two blades, he engages the goblins, unable to wait another second before trying the flask. He demonstrates his excellent knowledge of combat in practice. His tactics consist of keeping a small distance between the enemy and hitting him with sudden short attacks. Riley wants to deal with the goblins as quickly as possible so she can drink cola today. This is what 19 years of waiting leads to. The crowd of goblins rushes at Riley again, and he deals with everyone who came at him with swift blows. Sarah and Ian stand in shock at what they just saw. The young master, who had never held a sword in his hands in their memory, so easily dealt with all the monsters attacking them, after which he calmly prepared to continue on his way. Overexcited and exhausted, Riley fell asleep in the cart. At this time, Jan decides to discuss the young master's ability with his mother. Did she really know about them all this time? But Iris doesn't understand the art of swordsmanship, and she's just glad that her son is okay, because she was very scared when he rushed at them. She asks to keep this incident a secret, as she does not want to draw unnecessary attention to her son, which he does not want. This shocks Yana, because he so badly wants the young master to be noticed, but he does not dare to disobey the mistress's order. In the morning, the train arrives in Solia. Sarah happily shows and talks about her hometown. The three of them, along with Lady Iris and Riley, go to explore the area while Ian goes to the castle to register the family for the tournament. But that's a good thing, because otherwise he would be trying to talk to Riley about the incident that happened last night all the time. And in this town you have to eat, drink, and be merry. And Riley was just waiting for the moment to drink cola. On the way to Sarah's familiar cafe, several suspicious individuals follow the travelers. The girl in rags, who is called the scum of the magic tower, must earn her bread. Riley finally made it to his little piece of paradise, and the stake in Solia was indeed just like he remembered it from his past life. This puts him into ecstasy. Words cannot describe how happy he is. Sarah and Iris are also at a loss for words. All that remains for the young gentleman's mother is to allow him to take another and another glass. And at this time, on the street, there is a squabble with that same girl in rags that we saw before. She is attacked by two adult men and asks for help. The men calm the crowd by saying that they caught the girl stealing, but she tries to deny it. Sarah is ready to stand up for the baby, but Riley stops her, saying that this is all a setup, and these people cannot be trusted. Riley suggests that everyone just sit back and relax, not paying attention to what's going on. Sarah, however, cannot leave injustice unnoticed, and does not understand what staging means. To which Riley explains to her that these people's target is her sword, since they keep looking at it. And the girl is an accomplice of these two men, since she does not look for help in the crowd around her. She, like her accomplices, stared at Sarah's sword. That is why they should not get involved in unnecessary problems. Having had their fun in the evening, the company met with Jan for an overnight stay. He looks extremely exhausted. The butler complains to Riley that if it were up to him, he would take part in the duel. However, he cannot do this, so he can only wash away his grief with alcohol. At the castle, he bought 4 tickets for a fencing competition, and the saleswoman found out that he was from the house of Ippoletta. And he, a famous mercenary who in his old age serves in the house of a great swordsman, has to take 4 spectator seats. This means that no one from the family will take part in the competition. But that's not the worst of it. In the castle, Jan meets his old friend Schneider, who, like him, was and is a mercenary hero. Not only is John unmarried, he is also an ordinary butler. In addition, not only does he not serve any of the eldest known sons or the count, he is also simply a servant of the 3rd youngest son, nicknamed Lazy Sword. Schneider hears that Jan is ordering spectator tickets, and he himself guesses which of his sons Jan is serving. When he met him, the butler was able to keep a straight face, but as soon as a drop of alcohol entered his blood at home, he burst into tears like a child. After all, there is nothing more humiliating for a mercenary hero than a pitiful look from a former comrade. All night long, Jan complained about the injustice of this world and did not let his master sleep well. The male half of the travelers meets the female half at the breakfast table. Sarah had a great night's sleep and is looking forward to the competition tomorrow. This is her first time at the tournament and she really wants to watch it. Today's plan for travelers is to visit the right Solia. According to Sarah, it is better for them not to go to Lower Solia, as it is unsafe and dirty there. In principle, Riley doesn't mind. The maid is beside herself with joy and is ready to start showing her team around the city. The first thing they do is go to the temple where they worship the goddess Irenessa. Divination, worship, receiving blessings, and healing the sick and wounded, all this happens here. Once upon a time, Lady Iris suffered from a serious illness, and it was here that she found a priest to whom she owed her healing. The goddess Irenessa can grant a person the gift of prophecy. However, to achieve this, one must spend one's entire life in monasticism, which the young gentleman does not understand. Mrs. Iris communicates with a holy father named Libezra, who helped her overcome her illness. While this conversation is going on, Riley decides to go look around and is joined by Ian. The temple's beautiful architecture is captivating, but it reminds Riley of his past life. In one of these temples, he accidentally met a saint who immediately recognized him as the chosen one of the Holy Sword, and from then on his life changed irreversibly. And so, approaching the statue of the goddess Irenessa, they meet a figure in a white robe which kindly welcomes visitors. Ian bows respectfully before the figure that greeted them, but Riley is not particularly enthusiastic about the idea. He even acts a little cheeky, and first asks the girl to uncover her face in front of him if she wants him to greet her back. Despite the fact that this girl is an important person in the temple, Riley is not surrounded by importance either. However, the saint does not react to the young gentleman's barbs and finds it funny. She does not mind revealing her face to him. The girl turns out to be Saint Frisia, and Jan immediately begins to bow. Riley increasingly connects this life with his previous one and is angered by the very fact of such worship. After all, it was this kind of saint who gave him the blessing of the sacred sword in his past life, and she told him to destroy the demon king. After all, such a task is only possible for a warrior chosen by God, and he is the only hope for humanity. Once again giving in to memories, Riley brushes off the bows and the saint and is about to leave the hall. He is extremely rude in his statements, and the saint does not particularly like this, but she is angry rather like a child. This is not something that could be frightening. Frisia puffs out her cheeks and stops Riley, going to catch up with him. He turns to listen to her, but worries that she, like in her past life, might give him some kind of blessing, which he clearly does not want. To find out what the little girl wants to tell him, Riley has to lean towards her. She whispers a question to him that leaves Riley puzzled. This question must have been so childish. The saint clearly shouldn't be asking such things, but by leaving her question unanswered, Riley only confirmed her suspicions. One can only guess what she asked the young master, because his reaction was so sluggish when he saw her, and this led Frisia to these very thoughts. Riley goes on a rampage and tells off the saint. She gets into a small spat with him, but from the outside it looks like an argument between an older brother and a younger sister. Riley addresses her informally, and Frisia is unhappy about this, because she is a saint after all. But Riley doesn't really care. Jan has absolutely no idea what to do with this and simply waves his hands in bewilderment, trying to distract his master from this conversation. Riley is angry. He already had a hard time because of one such saint once, and he decides to say it out loud and suggests to Frisia not to irritate each other and just go their separate ways, which brings the girl to tears. He accuses her of starting it, and now she's crying. Lesser saints offer their assistance to Saint Frisia, but she refuses them, calling Riley's behavior sacrilege. He says that he does not consider himself to belong to any religion and, taking Jan, leaves the room. The priests gathered around the saint are still trying to calm her down. And not all people love saints. But this does not particularly console her. But still she decides not to attach much importance to the words of the ill-mannered gentleman. After all, everyone else considers her the holiest person after the goddess Irene's, and even the devil calls her a goddess incarnate. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief when they manage to calm the poor child. Frisia decides to return to prayer, when suddenly she is struck by news from the goddess. Apparently, this news is again somehow connected with Riley, because Frisia herself thinks that it could really be him. Having left the previous hall, Ian nevertheless decides to find out what St. Frisia whispered in Riley's ear. He comes up with an excuse like she asked what type of guy he liked. However, Frisia actually asked him if he liked men, which he decides to keep quiet about. And in general, he doesn't think that there is anything good in associating with a saint. Everyone leaves the temple, and on the way out, Riley and Ian meet the female half of their company. They both decide to keep silent about the unpleasant meeting with the saint. Next, the company heads to the magic tower. Riley even has a slight interest in magic, but he only wants to use it for his lazy purposes, such as telekinesis. Jan, as always, is dissatisfied with his master's unbridled desire for idleness. Due to the high mana content around the tower, even the air inside it becomes different. The only manifestation of magic that Riley had contact with in his past life was the very blessing of the sacred sword that he received. The life of the Chosen One was weighing on him, and Riley had no desire to deal with all the magic. However, in this life and with this magic, everything is different. This choice could determine his future. He hopes to overcome his traumatic past with the help of magic. Sarah suggests measuring the master's mana in the magic tower. All future magicians go through this procedure. Riley's older brothers also measured their mana in order to master the magic blade technique. Leon, the eldest son, developed mana at age 12 and Lloyd at age 14. Riley has never had the opportunity to measure mana, and now both girls, including his mother, are persuading him to do so. But naturally, it is Yang who shows the greatest desire. He was the best practitioner of combat magic during the Great War, and even in early childhood he noticed the potential of his master. He is sure that this is another of the master's extraordinary abilities. Riley is surprised by how spacious the inside of the magic tower is, even though it doesn't look like it from the outside. Many objects fly through the air using mana. It looks mesmerizing. Inside they are met by magicians, and one of them decides to ask the visitors for documents confirming their identities. After all, not everyone can enter the tower. Thanks to the Ippolita family documents, the four are given permission to inspect the first floor. However, they are not allowed to go up to the second floor and touch objects. At that very moment, Riley, who did not have time to listen to the magician to the end, touches a huge blue stone, and he immediately pushes him back, saying that this is a very important relic, and even a gentleman like Riley cannot touch it. In the magic tower, there are certain signs for items that can be touched and those that cannot. The magician finally introduces himself. His name is Ferda, and he is ready to give a short tour to his visitors. He shows them a huge library with magical books written by the magicians themselves. The device is similar to a refrigerator in its operating principle. In order to go up to the second floor and watch the training of novice magicians, it is necessary to go through some procedures. However, before Riley could ask what kind of things exactly, his family had already found a magic ball that measured mana. Under Ian's fiery gaze, Riley agrees to give it a try. You need to put your hand on the ball, and at first it will start to glow, and later it will fill with water, which will symbolize the amount of mana that a person has. Jan casually asks if it is possible that the ball will burst from the amount of mana. Ferda replies that this has never happened, but if it does, then such a person will definitely be invited to study at the magic tower. The only person who caused a crack in the magic ball was the great magician Astroya. He is a recognizable and revered figure because during the Great War he defeated a certain mercenary hero quite strong. Sarah and Iris understand why I'm wondering if the magic ball will burst, and it makes him a little uneasy. Riley is ready to use the artifact. He places his hand on the magic ball. The ball begins to emit a blue glow. Everyone is waiting. Ferda watches what is happening with interest. But it is John who is most looking forward to the results. After a few seconds, the procedure is finished, and Riley turns out to have an average level of mana, basic. This is a huge blow for the butler. He is willing to believe in incorrect results or a system failure, but not in the average mana level. Riley, on the other hand, is happy, and even comes up with the idea of becoming a magician. Ferda advises him to try everyday magic, which is exactly what Riley wanted. Beside himself with rage, Ian bites into the ball. Ferda tries to stop him because the ball is an important relic and must be handled with care. Riley pretends nothing is happening. He's hungry, that's more important. It's a good thing Sarah has already booked a table for the whole family at a restaurant in Pravaya Solia. But they can't leave without Jan, and he grabbed the ball with all the strength that a former mercenary has. Ferda, with tears in her eyes, silently asks for help. Sarah uses a dirty trick. She tells Ian that the young master used magic. The butler falls for the deception, and as soon as he realizes this, he throws an even bigger tantrum. He is so confident in Riley's talent that leaving the tower is almost physically painful for him. The team leaves the magic tower, dragging Ian along with them like a naughty child. After they leave, Ferda breathes a sigh of relief. In the evening, after his shift, he cleans the first floor. A crowd of mages gathered around the stone that Riley touched when he arrived. Ferda, not understanding what is happening, runs up to them. The stone turns out to be badly cracked. This stone can only be used by great magicians. Everyone present is extremely shocked, but mostly because the magician Astroya will throw a scandal at them. The magicians are trying to understand who is guilty of the tragedy. The duty officer Ferda does not remember any unusual personalities, and as if hearing that they have no clue, the stone shatters into small pieces. It's evening and Riley is walking around Solia with her mother. She is concerned about his tired appearance. The son reassures Iris. He has been to many places today, but everything is fine. What he doesn't say is how worried he is that the saint might once again recognize him as the chosen one, and that he had to collect mana in a different way so that no one would notice his abilities. Meanwhile, Jan still can't get a grip on himself. Riley asks his mother if she is disappointed in him. On the contrary, she is happy that he is an ordinary person. At night in Solia, pickpockets go out hunting. The trio, already known to the heroes, is just coming up with a new plan for getting rich. They are going to practice their craft right at the festival. The blonde chooses the victim. But as soon as Riley and her family come into his field of vision, all questions disappear. The thief calls all four heartless for not reacting to the earlier attack on the girl. Even his friend finds this excuse inappropriate. Besides, he has a bad feeling, but he needs to work. They blend into the crowd, gradually making their way towards their chosen target. The thieves split up and attack from behind. Jan immediately notices the danger and immediately strikes the first blow. First, the thief gets punched in the solar plexus. Jan's next blow is to the leg. He was so strong that the enemy could no longer rise. At the same time, Sarah had already neutralized his accomplice. Jan finishes off the criminals morally by calling out Ippolit's name. Sarah recognizes the bandits. These are the same people who staged the show last time. By the smell, she determines that these people are from Lower Solia. They smell like slop, even though they used perfume. Because the thieves are Sarah's fellow countrymen, she lets them go alive. But as payment for the inconvenience, he breaks the blonde's arm. Iris didn't even notice the attack thanks to her servants. Riley decided to simply ignore the incompetence. In a calm family atmosphere, they witness fireworks. Sarah returns and happily reminds us about tomorrow's fencing competition. Thus, the day of the tournament arrives. The whole company had already taken their places. Sarah arranged food and drinks. Even a meticulous swordsman like Jan comments that the participants this time show promise. Today's program contains 3 competitions, and although the participants are good, they still do not reach the level of the Ippolits. Only people with an invitation letter can watch fencing live. The rest of the commoners will watch the tournaments via magic broadcast, but only a day after the competition. Riley hopes that one of the contestants will do something stupid and embarrass themselves. Sarah upsets him that the recording of the festival and tournament will be processed, and such moments will be cut out. People in the Magic Tower are responsible for such editing, and so the first competition begins. The crowd shouts that they don't like John, but at the same time, if his young master had participated in the competition, he would have shouted louder than anyone else. The first pair of competitors consists of two noble families, Boyran and Dries. Both of these families are skilled with the sword, which bodes well for an interesting competition. And so the battle began. The opponents meet in intense sparring and are not inferior to each other. Even Riley is getting a little interested. He is slightly surprised that he himself does not even know some of the techniques that these people use. However, if you don't take this into account, what's happening on the battlefield reminds him of children's games. Since this is the case, Jan reminds the gentleman that he himself should have taken part in such a case. But Riley is lazy as always, and Ian doesn't like it as always. Riley once again reminds him of his nickname Lazy Swordsman, and his face becomes incredibly erect. This time Jan also notices this and cannot understand the reason for his young master's great fatigue. And why does he still hide his abilities and true face? Riley's sadness and Ian's misunderstanding are interrupted by Iris. She offers to find a bride for her son so that his life will be more interesting. They are both shocked by the proposal, but Iris quickly laughs it off. She just wanted to cheer things up a bit. Riley was so amused that he even wanted to move away. They leave the observation deck together with Jan, and in the corridor they meet people who are very aggressive towards them. The guy, who is accompanied by his servants, accuses Riley of making insolent statements about the tournament participants. Riley doesn't understand what the problem is because he literally didn't say anything about it. This time, Ian is on his side too. The stranger continues to insist that Riley was rude and that the competitors put in a lot of effort in preparing for the tournament. He says he will forgive Riley if he takes back his words, because it's clear he has no idea how hard this is. Riley, not wanting to continue the conflict because he is once again lazy, simply apologizes. But the apology was not sincere, which the stranger notices. The enraged stranger finally introduces himself. His name is Oplok, and he is the eldest son of the Arenzium family, and he's going to teach Riley a lesson on behalf of all the tournament participants. Before he takes action, he intends to find out what family Riley is from. Riley's sharp tongue was a problem in her past life, and it still persists in this one. The young gentleman exchanges silent glances with Jan, as if understanding each other. Riley just runs away. Jan is already blocking the path of his pursuers and is engaging in a fight with them. But the eldest son of the Arenzi family, surprisingly, easily overtakes Jan. He almost catches up with Riley, intending to punish him. He gives him the coldest look he can muster, and Oplok freezes from his aura. Riley has no intention of apologizing again and pulls Oplok's hand away from her with a sharp, forceful movement. He plans to teach the young master a lesson with his mana, thinking that he has no chance. However, Riley doesn't even pay attention to this and twists his arm even more, reminding everyone present that he just wants a quiet life. Riley throws Oplok into a wall, grabbing his handmaiden along the way. A pretty good crater remains in the wall, which surprises Jan once again. Oplok and the maid are unable to rise from such a blow, so Riley approaches them himself and starts a conversation. But the conversation does not go in the direction one might think, because the young gentleman smelled some pills from the eldest son of a noble family. He hints to Oplok that he had better keep a low profile if he does not want to be discovered, to which Oplok agrees without hesitation. While Ian is still in a stupor from what is happening, Riley snaps him out of his frightening state and leaves the victims in his care. If suddenly one of the passers-by tries to find out what is going on, then the blame automatically falls on Jan. If this does happen, Riley will take responsibility, because he is his master. After passing the baton of violence, Riley returns to her mother in the stands. Sarah tries to find out where the butler went, but Riley jokes that he is stuck in the toilet. Two women discuss hearing a sound that sounded like an explosion. Riley, meanwhile, pretends not to be involved. Riley returns to his meal, his glass full of local cola again as he makes old man sounds again. A new duel begins. One of the opponents is a candidate for the championship in this tournament. Even Sarah is rooting for him. He is unusual in that he fights with two blades and resembles the middle son of the Iplet family at an earlier age. This is the first time the Geniere have competed in this type of competition, and they are already pushing him to first place. In a secret competition between participants, this guy showed an extraordinary technique of wielding two swords, which is why such an opinion was formed about him. The tournament brochure even places him above the Ippolita family in swordsmanship. And even though it is not in the Ippolit family's interests to root for him, Sarah still expects a good match from this young man. According to the rules of the competition, the fight will continue until one of the participants stops fighting or is thrown out of the field. However, you cannot bring your opponent to the point of threatening his life. Otherwise, the participant will be disqualified. Both sides take up fighting stances. The opponent of the famous swordsman can barely hold his weapon in his hands. He's all scared. No one doubts the victory of the dual-wielding swordsman except Riley. He wants to ask his maid about the second participant. It turns out that he is from the same family as the man with whom Riley had an argument in the hallway, although it would be better to say that he slammed him into the wall in the corridor. As soon as Sarah says this, something unexpected happens. The guy who was just shaking his head with a sword in his hands knocks both blades out of his opponent's hands in one movement. A heavy silence and anticipation hung in the stands. With his second blow, the boy knocks his opponent down. Riley concludes that the boy was also using pills, just like his brother. The youngest son of the Arenzium family is himself in shock from the fact that he just won. The referee raises his hand in victory and announces to all the stands that Aplayan is the winner. He is incredibly happy about this event, although he still doesn't fully believe it. Riley realizes that even though the guy doesn't smell as strong of a pill as his brother, he definitely didn't win on his own. Meanwhile, Ian still hasn't returned, and Riley even starts to worry a little about him. It turned out that the butler stayed to provide assistance to those injured by his master. Thanks to the use of mana, the noble boy was not hurt as much as his maid, and she needs help first. At the same time, Ian reflects on what Riley said. Additionally, due to the level of skill shown, Ian comes to the conclusion that Riley may have falsified his mana measurement results. He even suggests that his master is a dragon that has descended to Earth. That's why he is so powerful, but he hides his power. Dragons are extremely powerful creatures that live up to 10,000 years. However, sometimes they come down to Earth in human form just to have fun. Yang cannot give any other explanation for the enormous strength of his master. He immediately dismisses this thought, since he saw Riley's birth with his own eyes. He immediately switches to other thoughts, and now thinks that Iris is a dragon, which is why her son is so strong. Then he thinks again that he is wrong, because recently she was coughing up blood from poisoned soup. All these thoughts come to Jan's mind as he helps the two poor fellows get back on their feet. And he says some of his thoughts out loud, for example that his master is the greatest man, which has already become quite annoying to the two victims. Lost in his thoughts, Jan didn't even notice how a crowd of priests approached him. They call out to him, and from behind the people comes out that same Saint Frisia. She is looking for a guest who came to their temple yesterday. Ian fears that this is due to Riley's ignoble behavior. Frisia asks Ian if he knew about this, but he doesn't understand the point of the question. Meanwhile, the first day of the competition ended. Sarah is a little sad that her favorite in this festival lost so quickly. Additional competitions are prohibited by the rules, so he won't be able to win back. This year there are much fewer participants in the tournament, so the tournament itself will be faster. In a few days there may already be a final or semi-final. The maid did not expect such a result from the master of the Arenzium family. His blow is comparable in strength to the eldest son of the Epiletian family. But if you think about comparing him and Riley, he doesn't keep up with the younger gentleman. Firstly, he did not hesitate when making his attacks in the battle with the goblins. Secondly, his strength and technique amazed Sarah. But most of all, she was stunned by his cold-blooded look after he killed the goblin Arab. But she doesn't want to jump to conclusions, because until these two meet in a duel, it's hard to say who will win. She wanted to ask Riley about this, but he disappeared again somewhere. The youngest son warned Iris that he had gone to visit Jan. Sarah is already ready to go looking for them, because both have been gone for a long time. But Iris starts blabbering about the bride again, and judging by the expression on her face, she wasn't joking last time. And he really wants the young master to settle down. In any case, the competition is over, so both women leave the spectator stand. In the corridor, they encounter a crowd staring at something. Iris notices Ian in the middle of the action. Sarah is rushing to the rescue. Riley is not there with the butler, but the knights and abbots from the temple are standing right in front of him. St. Frisia announces to all present that this entire crowd is in search of people from the Eiplet family. Meanwhile, Riley hides outside and decides to use the mask he bought yesterday. He needs to follow the guy he beat up not long ago. After all, if he were to let slip about the young master's abilities, things might not be easy for him. Following the deception, Riley determines that Ian has just sent away the people his master asked him to take care of. However, following the same trail, he realizes that they are heading to Lower Salt, and he will have to get there on his own. Riley realizes that the Orenziums went to Lower Solia for the pills he had smelled on them earlier. There, in Lower Solia, 2 thieves who ran into the Eiplet family are still catching their breath. They were lucky to be alive, even though they were crippled. That same blonde guy named Beta is beside himself with rage and pain in his broken arm. His companion suggests going to the temple to heal his hand, but Beta only balks under the pretext that noble upstarts will not treat low-class people like them. He intends to take revenge on the aristocrats for what they did to him, and is going to resort to the help of the scum of the Magic Tower. The third member of their group is Nini, the same girl they used as the so-called bait. Nini owes her life to Beta, so she agrees to help him without hesitation. The Orenzium families are heading towards Lower Solia in Caretti. The younger brother tells the trembling older one about his exploits in the tournament, but the older one hardly listens to him, as he is still in a state of shock. In addition, he experiences strong side effects from the lack of pills. The maid who is driving the carriage notices this, but does not interfere in their conversation. Riley lands quietly on the roof of the carriage and eavesdrops on the conversation. Just as he has time to think that it is time to return, he senses danger. The road to the carriage was blocked by 2 people, Beta and Nini. Beta assumes that the guy in the mask is the one they must take revenge on, even though he remembers him slightly differently. Nini is sure that this guy is the one they are looking for, and while the carriage is rapidly approaching the 2 who are blocking its path, Beta orders the dark-haired girl to kill Ryle. The young gentleman is only amused by such self-confidence. 9 gathers a large amount of mana and casts a spell called Lightning Strike towards him. The carriage overturns and people fly in different directions. Raelia manages to recover from the blow and is even surprised by the power of this girl's magical skills. He had never seen anything like this in his past life. People on the street are panicking over the use of black magic. Riley tries to remember where he saw this girl. This is the same girl who took part in the production on Riley's first day in Salt. She looks distraught. The only thing in her head is the desire to fulfill the request of her dear, as she thinks, friend. In her mind, he is the only one who believed in her and told her that she could handle it, so she is determined to fulfill her destiny. And her power is so great that even Riley considers the current situation to be very dangerous. And at the site of the tournament, the investigation and search for the young master is still ongoing. St. Frisia tries to find out from Sir where he went, but she herself doesn't know. After all, he went to the toilet and then disappeared. Sarah throws a caustic glance in Ian's direction. After all, he didn't keep an eye on Mr. Riley. Besides, Jan himself disappeared for some time, and this also caused them problems. St. Frisia does not answer Iris's question about whether she intends to wait here for Riley. She just picks up the glass that belonged to him before, and the people around her think that she is going to track him down with her divine powers. But something makes her furious, and the glass shatters into pieces in her small, fragile hand. After this, she comes to her senses, but what happened frightens Jan. He only becomes convinced that she is here because of their disagreements from yesterday. One of the priests brings Frisia news about what is happening in the central district. When they go outside, they see everyone present sees smoke rising and the sky flickering red from the direction of the city center. Black and purple projectiles of magic fly down the street, crashing into houses. Ordinary people are trying to escape. Riley watches from the rooftop, sword in hand. It's the first time he's seen anyone use such powerful magic. Nini is obsessed with fulfilling Beta's request. She intends to kill the young master at any cost, and projectile after projectile releases its magic into him. Riley is amazed at such magical power at such a young age. A group of patrol knights try to stop Nini, but she sets them on fire with a violet flame. Riley thinks about who to turn to and comes to the conclusion that Ian could help. But the brothers from the Arenzium family turn out to be absolutely useless, since they lost consciousness during the carriage crash. It looks like the young gentleman will have to intervene in the matter himself, but first he needs to dodge the fireball that Nini throws at him. Seeing how easily she uses magic, Riley once again wonders if he should master it. Nine's next attack is an ice spear, but Riley easily cuts it with his sword, which amazes the girl. Beta is pressing on her with shouts and requests to kill her. Riley remembers this blonde man and is filled with even more hatred and contempt for him than before. Perhaps Sarah and Ian should have killed him before this incident. Now Riley will have to deal with him himself. And in the magic tower they are still figuring out who contributed to such a major breakdown. The criminal must be found before the chief magician notices the loss. Since Ferdo was on duty on the first floor that day, naturally he was sent out to search. But he has no idea who could have caused the destruction. The only one he could remember was Riley. But it's hard to imagine how a man nicknamed Lazy Sword could break such an important artifact with just one touch. Moreover, he didn't have that much mana. Ferdo dismisses the thought. And the stone that shattered into pieces turns out to be the most powerful mana meter, and even the Grand Master of Astroi could not break off even a piece of it. While searching for the criminal, Ferdo witnesses an explosion in the central square and heads there. The explosion was the result of the use of offensive magic, which cannot be used without permission. Making his way through the crowd of people fleeing towards the garages, Ferdo runs towards danger to stop the attacker. Arriving at his destination, he recognizes Nini and remembers that she was kicked out of the tower. Ferdo witnesses a battle between a girl and a masked man. He sees him cutting the fireball with a sword and is extremely surprised. Time after time, Riley uses his sword to repel Nini's attacks. She doesn't understand how this is possible, considering he's only using a steel sword. Besides, he parries her attacks quite easily. The girl spent a lot of energy, as a result of which her internal injuries became apparent. She starts coughing up blood, just like Riley's mother once did. But Nini is not going to give up because Beta is counting on her. She's going to change tactics. Before this, Nini put a lot of effort into her punches. Now she wants to attack Riley with small blows, but in greater quantity. By this logic, Nini releases magic arrows. The swordsman notices the change in tactics, but still easily parries the blows. It even became easier for him to defend himself, since the attack became weaker. Nini is stunned while Beta egged her on, hinting that she wouldn't be able to win. Her silence makes him angry. Nini promises to fulfill the request of her only so-called friend at any cost, even at the cost of her own life. And Riley notices that the girl's mana color is extremely rare. Could this be some special type of mana that he had only seen a few times in his past life? However, the color of mana like Nini's in her past life meant powerful black magic. However, at the moment, Riley feels that the girl's magic is unstable and dangerous, but not black. The poor guy bleeding to death can't even control his mana. In the girl's eyes, one can read only emptiness and the intent to kill her opponent. Riley isn't about to let this go. After some time from the start of the battle, the townspeople finally notice that the mage is fighting someone and not just bombing the city. They see that the swordsman calmly copes with all attacks and decide that there is no need to run away anymore. Unfortunately, their words send Riley back to his past. When he was a warrior, people also reacted to his appearance on the battlefield and stopped being afraid. They thought that he would definitely figure everything out, just because he was a warrior. The young gentleman's mood changes. 9 notices this and asks Beta to run away, as the swordsman will get out of control and could kill everyone in the square. She promises to protect her so-called friend even at the cost of her own life. However, he doesn't care about such promises. All he wants is for the people who hurt him and left him with a deep emotional wound to die. The motivator from Beta is so-so. All he can do is call Nini's death useless unless she finishes off her opponent. Beta and his partner took Nini in and helped her and them earn a living after the girl was kicked out of the magic tower. Beside himself with rage, the blonde boy started yelling at the whole street, forgetting about the presence of his opponent. Riley is getting angrier and angrier with each passing second, and this time Beta also felt his ominous aura. The young gentleman is extremely dissatisfied with the whole performance that this petty thief has put on. Beta's looks fall even further in his eyes when he calls Nini trash, which makes Riley completely disgusted with him. Despite everything Beta said to the girl, she is still on his side and directs a pillar of fire at the young master. Even though tongues of flame engulf Riley's body, he dispels them with the same steel sword. Nini tries her best to save her friend, even when her strength is running low. Riley can't kill her because she's just a stupid little girl, so he just knocks her out. Beta, on the other hand, is in for a whole other conversation. Riley swings his sword at him and is ready to strike, but the vile thief is saved by a barrier that appears above his head. The figure of an old magician froze on a magical flying circle in the sky. He doesn't seem particularly friendly. Riley senses strong mana coming from him, which is being collected from the fortress and from left Solia. Without waiting for an answer from Riley, the elderly mage points his staff, blazing in flames, at him. He finally introduces himself. This is the same Grandmaster Asteroid that the mages in the Magic Tower were worried about. He intends to deal with Riley personally. The manga doesn't intend to disappoint the audience, so it immediately reveals to us the true nature of Master Asteroid. He appeared in the central square at Ferda's request. He called him for help after he saw what was happening. However, the old man initially refuses to go there because he has more important things to do, and in general, he is a high-ranking person. While telling this story, he gives an injection to some poor guy. Ferda tries to convince him otherwise. After all, while Master Asteroid is busy selling underground drugs, one of their former test subjects is causing a ruckus in the central square. This information already interests the Master even more, because he thought that all the test subjects had already died long ago. However, the news delights him rather than frightens him, and he goes to the square not to help people but to have fun. Ferda also warned the great magician that their test subject had an opponent. Naturally, the young magician was talking about Riley. Not wanting to understand the situation, the mage Astroya blames Riley for the unrest on his territory. He intends to get rid of the swordsman, and the people in the square finally begin to think about their safety. Astroya casts the Meteo spell. It's heading towards Riley, but he keeps his face calm as usual. Standing in a fighting stance, he considers which of the 3 options available to him he should take. Quickly getting his bearings, he splits the large fireball into 3 smaller ones, after which, with one movement of the sword, he repels them and sends the magician Asteroid back. He becomes enraged that his own spell is being used against him. To defend himself, he casts a water ball. Hiding in a cloud of steam, he looks around, having lost sight of his current opponent. In this search, instead of Riley, he meets a sword in the back of the head. Astroya uses a barrier, but it turns out to be not strong enough to withstand the steel sword and is destroyed, because of which the sword digs into the master's hand. The previously untouchable Master of Asteroid is enraged at having suffered. The cloud of steam dissipates, but the swordsman is already gone without a trace. Only the dead former thief remained lying on the ground. Finally, after so much time, Saint Frisia appears in the square, accompanied by other priests and knights. To protect her people, Frisia uses a divine barrier. The priests think that Astroya has aimed his attack at them, but this is not so, because he is looking in the direction of the central square. The girl takes her henchman to the nearest safe place. Her main task now is to find the man from the prophecy of the goddess Ironessa. Meanwhile, the Riley family is still waiting for his return, wondering why St. Frisia was looking for the family's youngest son. Jan pretends that he knows nothing, and is saved from further questioning by the appearance of the young gentleman. Riley pretends to have been looking for Ian the whole time, who was supposedly in the bathroom. Iris suggests that the boys must have missed each other as there are a lot of toilets here. Ian thinks that Riley simply ran away from the attention of St. Frisia. But now that everyone is here, we can finally leave the competition venue. On the way, Riley praises Ian for dealing with the Arenzium people as he was asked to. The only worry the boy had left was Nini. He wants to take care of her, remembering the people of the Arenzium family. During this time, they had already managed to come to their senses, and now they are being interrogated by a local officer. He wants to know what they were doing in Lower Solia, and who they were trying to meet there. The older brother is still going through withdrawal, so the younger one speaks for him. And he has no intention of reporting all the information he has to the officer interrogating them. The family's maid intervenes in the conversation. She is more aggressive. She states that her masters are busy people, and the interrogation should have ended long ago. After all, the incident is tied to magicians, and its owners are sword masters from a famous family. The girl presses the officer harder and harder, and he tries to restrain her ardor. The family needs to leave a statement so that they don't have to be present at the station later. The maid snatches the sheet of paper on which they are to leave these statements from the officer's hands and returns to her masters. Her face immediately changes to a friendly one. She takes her people out to dinner. Even the officer notices her duplicity. Under the light of the full moon, Nini wakes up in a place unknown to her. She doesn't find her ill-fated blonde boyfriend nearby, and this worries her. His last words echo in her mind. The girl is afraid that she has been abandoned again. In addition, she is experiencing severe pain. They caught up with the girl after such active use of magic. Everything she had done before was to avoid being alone again. Riley finds her in this deplorable state. He was even worried that the girl would never wake up. Nini wants to know what happened to Beta, but Riley doesn't give her a clear answer. The girl recognizes him as her former opponent, but does not intend to attack him anymore. But Riley is interested in what she used against him. The girl doesn't want to tell her secrets. The young master is trying to figure out the reason for such a strange color of her magic. He even threatens the girl with a sword. Under threat of death, Nini's whole life flashes before her eyes. Her most vivid memory is of her childhood with her mother. There is snow outside the window as white as her mother's hair, and Nini herself still had white hair at that time. She and her mother were like two peas in a pod. It turns out that Nini herself decided to participate in the experiments in the magic tower. She wanted to provide her family with money so that they could live without worries, and perhaps one day even become a famous magician herself. But the situation didn't turn out the way she wanted. Horrible things were happening in the basement of the tower. Nini witnessed the suffering of others before she took the experimental pill herself. She had to pass this test, otherwise her family would not see any money. Despite her fear, she still decided to do it. Perhaps this determination was what contributed to the girl's survival. Moreover, the magicians considered it a successful experiment, the essence of which was to create magicians of the highest level. As a result of the experiments performed on Nini, her hair turned black and she was left with a scar on her face. In the cold winter, she was sent home in rags, but when she finally returned there, her own mother did not recognize her, and the girl was left on the street. Even her own mother abandoned her. That's why she clung so tightly even to such a disgusting friend as Beta. All Nini wanted was to not disappoint anyone. To his surprise, the always cool-headed Riley is moved by her story. He sees himself from a past life in the girl and understands that she will not become happy with such methods. The young gentleman offers her his help. Nini herself is extremely surprised that such an aristocrat as Riley offered to help her. But Riley thinks that simply helping her will not be interesting, so he offers a deal. Riley wants Nini to start over, but she doesn't know how yet. He promises to give her one of the answers to this question. The girl again asks the young gentleman why he is offering her help. Riley still doesn't have a clearer answer than that she looks like her previous self, to which Nini remarks that it seems like they didn't experiment on him. Meanwhile, in the Magic Tower, Master Astroy is holding a disciplinary talk with his minions. The tower's magicians had to find the criminal who split the stone in the shortest possible time. And in connection with the massacre on the main square, they also need to detain Nini, who was expelled from the tower, and the criminal whose face is hidden by a mask. But the magicians failed to achieve any of the above. For this reason, Astroya treats them very harshly. He empathizes with them, so to speak, and understands why it was difficult to detain the criminal, because they don't know exactly who broke the stone. And he also understands why the magicians couldn't bring him the man he fought with in the square. But on Nini, the girl who was expelled from the tower, there should have been a seal that they put on her, and it would be possible to track the girl down. It turns out that the seal has disappeared, and at the moment the magicians have not found an explanation for this. Here Astroya suddenly remembers the Arenzium family. Today was the last chance to pick up the goods, but they lost it. On the bright side, Ferda is being kept under control by the lower Solians. At this point, Astroya leaves and heads to the basement. Ferda understands this and asks him to stop. After all, they have already achieved development in the medicine, and it can now create seventh circle magicians. All this time, Ferda believed that creating pills was the master's passion for science. But now this is already going beyond all bounds. Returning to Riley and Nini, it turns out that there are a couple of boxes next to them, similar to the ones that the Arenziums were supposed to take. Riley sniffs. He smells something similar to what he smelled from this family before. It turns out that Riley hid 9 in the Magic Tower, right under the noses of all the magicians. He also found narcotic substances. Riley himself finds Astroy while doing this. However, when he enters the room, he only notices a girl. He is very happy about this coincidence. Now he won't have to look for it, and he will also be able to find out where the seal went. Meanwhile, Riley arms himself with his old mask. It was time for him to draw the master's attention to himself, and only at this moment did Astroya notice him. Riley shows the master the drugs he found in his stash and accuses him of illegal distribution. Despite the high position of this man, such trades are prohibited by law in Solia. Flirting with his opponent, Riley states that he only wanted to find some things related to Nini, but ended up finding something bigger. This infuriates Master Astroy, who prepares to attack the masked man. He launches a fireball at him, but like their previous battle, Riley parries it with his sword. He still accuses the master of clearly acting extremely lowly for a man of his status. Astroya does not understand who is standing in front of him and only becomes more furious. Riley replies that he is just a retired warrior. Calling everyone in sight scum, Astroya attacks Riley and Nini again with the same spell. But this time, Riley doesn't stop at parrying and cuts off the mage's hand. Astroya clearly wasn't expecting such a blow, especially in a PG-13 rated manga. He grabs the place where his hand once was and falls to the floor. Blood is gushing out from both him and his severed hand. Nini is also surprised by this turn of events. Beating his lost hand, the master screams at the top of his lungs. In response to his cries, Riley suggests that he attach his hand back. Otherwise, he will be left with only one for the rest of his life, which makes the old man even more angry. Ignoring his anger, the masked man informs the master that he has cut his largest blood vessel, and if nothing is done, he will simply perish like a dog. The master only now realizes that he was too careless with this man. Riley kicks the mage's severed arm towards him and suggests that he just quietly teleport away, as he doesn't plan on getting in his way. He then turns to Nini and they continue searching for what they came for in the first place. They are now in a room above the basement, and to find the stairs down, Riley taps the floor with her sword. Astroya is surprised that his opponent knows about the basement. The force of several of Riley's blows is enough to crack the stone floor, further shocking the magister. Thus the young gentleman finds the stairs to the basement. Nini, remembering everything that happened there, stands in horror at his discovery. A restless old man attacks a girl with accusations of betrayal. After all, they gave her such a huge chance and taught her magic of such power. and she stabbed them in the back. The young gentleman answers instead of Nini. He does not consider experiments on people to be training. But this time, Nini is able to stand up for herself. She tells the master that Ferdo was her teacher, not him. And this time his words are just an empty sound for the girl. Now she is not afraid to go forward because the man in the mask promised to help her. And she is full of confidence to start life anew. Nine uses magic to attack the Magister, but he finally decides to teleport. None of the remaining 2 people in the room are particularly concerned that the master has escaped. After all, he is a wizard and will somehow deal with his severed hand, and they don't care about him at all. But Nini objects a little to Riley cutting off the master's hand, not because she feels sorry for him, but because she wanted him to just kill him. Riley believes that killing the master at this point would be wrong, because he needs a complete picture of what is happening. Nini doesn't quite understand what this is all about. They go down to the basement, and along the way, Riley asks her what she would do if something phenomenal happened in her life. He himself replies that in such cases he prefers to stay away. Nini again doesn't understand what this means. In metaphorical terms, Riley puts it this way. If someone plans to detonate a bomb, it will be the young gentleman who will light the fuse and then simply stand back to watch. But its action will speed up the process. And now, when they enter the basement, they do approximately the same thing. Nini stops in front of the door, a little afraid to go inside. Riley goes first. She pulls herself together and follows the young master. The basement is splattered with blood. Here the main characters will search for the very medicine that was invented through experiments on people. To get the job done faster, Riley resorts to deduction. Yesterday, during the battle in the main square, somehow Nini was able to find out his location. She says it's because of the eye. Nini can recognize a person's location by their clothing or appearance if she introduces them. Riley comments that the ability is similar to radar, but this is the first time Nine has heard the word, as it is from another world. In this basement, Nini learned black magic and enemy detection skills. This was Riley's conclusion, and Nini might have wanted to object, but then the heroes came across the basement prisoners asking for help. With their help, Riley plans to add fuel to the fire and free the captives. Before standing back and watching, Riley gives the freed captives a coin with the Erenzium family mark. In this way, he also frees Nini. She doesn't quite understand what this means. The second day of the tournament arrives, and the whole family is back together. Riley falls asleep right in the audience seats after a night of adventures. The youngest son of the Erenzium family is again participating in this duel, but this time he is even less confident than last time. Sarah briefly recounts his previous battle to Ian, who missed it last time. Then she was sick of the swordsman with 2 blades, who quickly flew out. Jan asks the maid if she noticed anything terrible, or rather strange, during this battle yesterday. She replies that she doesn't even understand what they're talking about, to which Jan asks a leading question about the smell. The battle begins in 3 seconds. Only now does Sarah notice that the youngest son of the Erenzium family really does smell different this time. As soon as the battle began, the youngest son dropped the sword from his hands with a scream and simply fell flat on the ground. Sometime after the duel, the eldest brother of the Erenzium family expresses his anger over the fact that they were unable to receive their dose of medicine yesterday. The maid tries to calm him down, but he cannot recover from the loss of his younger brother. Despite this, the girl has to tell her master the bad news. In Lower Solia, they were told that they could no longer issue the goods. Her master perceives this as a betrayal. He becomes even more angry. The maid tried to blackmail the seller, but she was unable to get the goods out of him. The elder Erenzium's mind, clouded with anger, recalls yesterday's fight with Riley, when he told him that was why it stunk a mile away. Naturally, such a remark touches a raw nerve for a man from a noble family. He also suffers from withdrawal symptoms. He feels like there are insects crawling under his skin. Unable to resist the urge any longer, he decides to take up his sword and wrest the medicine from the sellers. After all, he is an aristocrat, and they are just idiots from Lower Solia and will not be able to oppose him. Without a second's delay, he is about to head to the place of the transaction. The maid tries to stop him because her younger brother needs support, but he hears nothing but his own desires. The fencing competition is over, and now the team from the Eiplet house still has the whole evening to see the sights of the city. Meanwhile, Nini puts her new plan into action. Riley instructed her to head to the temple 20 minutes after the end of the competition. There she must tell about what happened in the basement. She must destroy the life of Master Astroy just as he once destroyed hers. Nini is plagued with doubts, as even her mother has disowned her. How can people from the temple, such high-ranking people, listen to her? But now she is not alone. Now she has a family of people who have also suffered from the experiments. Armed with evidence in the form of a narcotic substance, Nini and her newly formed team head to the temple, in order to restore the lives of people who lost them due to the greed of the master. Holding back tears, she encourages her friends because they all now have a chance to start living from this. And now they are already in front of the temple gates. A priest meets them at the temple. Seeing their terrible condition, he assumes that they are from Lower Solia. He even intends to kick them out. But this time, Nini will not miss her chance. She asks the priest to listen to them. But as soon as she takes a step forward, the guard knights point their swords at her. The girl protects her team because she is the only one from Lower Solia here, and other survivors from different parts of the city. This interests the priest, and Nini plays her trump card, producing some narcotic grass. She is going to tell everyone about the terrible experiments on people that are being conducted in the magic tower. At this point, St. Frisia intervenes in their conversation. She is ready to listen to the girl. Her kindness contrasts with the prejudices of the rest of the people gathered. St. Frisia calls upon all free people in the temple to help. Meanwhile, the exhausted elder Arisium wanders around the city, cursing and scratching himself like a man in a fit, and you can see from his face how much the withdrawal is affecting him. Right on the street, he meets Master Astroy, who somehow sewed his hand back on. He was heading towards him, but the old man found him himself. The blue-haired gentleman immediately pounces on the master with accusations. After all, he suspects that Astroya ordered the people of Lower Solia not to give the goods to the noble family. The master lets him go into overdrive with a hard slap. The wizard has more serious claims against the master. After all, Arenzium hid important information from him. To extract this information from him, Astroya saved a sprig of that very ill-fated herb. Her scent envelops the elder aristocrat, and under the power of the aroma he immediately falls to his knees. After the doses taken by the aristocrat, he was no longer able to control himself when he saw the substance. He can only shake his head, but cannot utter a word. Bringing him back to his senses, Astroya shows him a badge with the Arenzium family banner. Somehow the eldest son lost it and only now noticed it. Astroya believes that he was the man in the mask and destroyed all his plans and also cut off his hand. Right before Arenzium's eyes, the wizard burns the grass, exhausting him even more. Seeing his pitiful state, Astroya ponders her conclusion about the attacker. After all, he wasn't that weak, and only some clear thought had to come into his head. By that time, the priests, led by St. Frisia, find him and immediately accuse him of the crime. When Frisia asks the old man to answer a couple of questions, his face immediately changes and he pretends to be a kind grandfather. But the girl interrupts him mid-sentence, adding that he is accused of inhumane experiments on people and the production of drugs, as well as their illegal sale. She was full of confidence and apparently believed the words of the people who came to the temple. Astroya intends to escape by teleportation, but his spell is cancelled. He doesn't understand how this happened, because to use this spell you need the magic of the seventh circle, and the girl clearly doesn't have it. But this spell was not used by Frisia, but by Nini, who had already become part of the temple. With her help and on her tips, Astroya was found and accused. It is no coincidence that the Riley family witnesses this trial. Riley watches what is happening with interest. He is proud that Nini was able to negotiate with the people from the temple. Realizing that he won't be able to get out of this with magic, Astroya begins to come up with an excuse. Frisia doesn't believe him. The saint uses her ability granted to her by the goddess Irenessa. She can tell if a person is telling the truth, and Astroya knows she can't lie. And Riley once again notes to himself that he would not talk to her again. Astroya remains silent, realizing that she cannot lie. Frisia continues to press on him. There's nothing to be done. All that's left is to show your cards. The old man confesses what he did. He tells how he sold drugs made in the tower to aristocrats, and thanks to the money he received from sales, he covered the costs of his modest experiments. Showing his true colors, he continues to snap at Frisia. Hearing the word modest in relation to experience and knowledge, the spirit of Lower Solia bursts out of Nini, and she covers her grandfather with a 3-story curse, but he immediately comes to his senses, since Jan, who was standing nearby, reacts even more eccentrically to information about the crimes of the Grand Master. Yana has been suffering from PTSD since the Great War, because it started because of drugs. The veteran laments the shed blood and lost lives of young warriors, while even Astroya fell silent in confusion at his intervention. At the end of his monologue, Jan adds that he has always disliked wizards. Getting the conversation back on track, Frisia repeats her accusation in full and asks the guards to take the master under arrest. The Ministry of Solia should deal with him. Astroya does not intend to give up so easily because he is, after all, a 7th Circle mage. Becoming his enemy is not the best decision, even for St. Frisia. She agrees that it would not be worth starting a feud with him, and the grandfather continues, perceiving this as an approving gesture. He suggests getting rid of Nini as she is a mistake of the magic tower. But Frisia didn't finish. She had a counter-argument. She had recently received a divine revelation. She informs everyone present that the one who is supposed to save them all has already arrived in this world. This time PTSD catches Riley. Frisia's final word is arrest. She blesses the knights with her magic, but Astroya is not willing to fight so easily, insisting on self-defense. He uses the sands of Greece and the swamp on the knights to make them drown in quicksand. Frisia can still take back her accusations, because if she gets involved with the Magister, many people could die. But it should not be underestimated either. She uses healing on knights and quicksand as if it never happened. Frisia asks the swordsman to evacuate the residents to safe places. She herself will oppose Astroy so that more innocent people do not die than possible. The knights accept the order and evacuate. Without hesitating for another second, Astroya casts a fireball. Riley had already come to his senses by that time and was watching the battle with interest. Fireball turns into a meteorite, and Astroya sends him to Frisia along with Nini and her guards. Frisia fights back with the sanctuary spell, which collides with the master's meteorite. But the sanctuary was not strong enough to protect her completely, and the girl gets burns. However, this even impresses Astra a little, but he is already ready to attack again with ice arrows. The knights have requested reinforcements and offer the saint refuge in the castle until they arrive. Before she could respond, she had to use a barrier to protect herself from Astroy's spell. But the barrier cannot withstand such a number of fast and strong blows. So Frisia asks Nini to cancel the attacker's spell. At this moment, the barrier collapses and several arrows manage to fly past the saint. One of them slightly touches her. The people in the square run away in panic, as does the gentleman from the Arenzium family. Jan is ready to take up his sword at any moment, and that moment comes. He cuts through the few remaining arrows protecting St. Frisia. She recognizes the swordsman because she saw him at the fencing competition, and he shows his abilities in all their glory. Astroy is not very impressed. Riley is upset that Ian got involved in the fight, and Sira calls him to safety. Riley asks her to take Iris away first, because he wants to watch the spectacle for a few more minutes. The not-so-great master still continues to verbally mock his opponents. He believes that there are stronger warriors in the city than those he has met now. Frisia increases the punishment, and now the upset becomes an arrest. But the wizard believes that he will become innocent as soon as he kills the witnesses. He uses a black magic spell called Underworld. Nine is surprised that he has moved on to such powerful spells so quickly. This spell cannot be undone, but to start a new life, she will have to come up with something. She is worried that it might not work out, and even her own legs won't listen to her. Riley contacts her using her telepathic powers. He doesn't want her to die so stupidly. Both Riley and Nini will have to go through a series of tests in order to start a new life, and the young master once again arms himself with a mask to intervene in the fight. Nini doesn't understand where the voice comes from and doesn't recognize it as her savior. Frisia is shocked by the enormous magical power of the master. She doesn't understand why he does this, No amount of persuasion works on the mage, and he uses the underworld side of the saints and swordsmen gathered in the square. 9 rushes forward in an attempt to stop the spell. She orders everyone else to save themselves. The girl is determined to save the people who finally treated her kindly, even if she really does die this time. This time she has hope of victory, because the young master showed it to her. Riley intervenes in the fight because he won't let Nini die. The young master tried so hard to save her, and if she died, his efforts would be in vain. Once again, showing his magnificent abilities, he dispels the spell with one blow of his sword, which Nini could not undo and did not consider it possible. This time, Astroya is not just surprised, he is in deep shock. Seeing the familiar mask, he again falls into a rage. But Riley's patience is not limitless either. He's going to continue this one-on-one fight. Riley asks Saint Frisia and her minions to leave the battlefield, as they are no good anyway. A little shocked, Frisia nevertheless moves away a little under the pressure of the man in the mask. She leaves for a safe place with her knights, where they come to their senses, after which the saint uses healing again. Nini doesn't understand why the young master interfered in the duel, because it goes against his philosophy from yesterday. In principle, he didn't plan it, but Nini took too long to figure it out and he got bored. Easygoing Astroya once again reacts angrily to Riley's caustic remark. After all, he is a 7th circle magician and you can't talk about him like that. Riley is extremely angry because his mother almost got hurt because of this fight, and he takes it personally. Nini still doesn't understand the enormous power that the man who saved her possesses, because he dispelled such a powerful spell with one blow. But her thoughts are interrupted by Riley. First, they have to finish the fight. He calls John to him, who does not know that his master is hiding under the mask, and together they are going to use their powers against the master. He orders John to fire a large volley of arrows towards Astroy, and Nini points in his direction without any evidence yet. Astroya waits patiently, watching what is happening. He is confident in his abilities and does not intend to rush this time. The mage blocks the hero's path to attack with a wall of fire. Riley will deal with this spell on his own, and he instructs the others to act according to the plan. Jan starts shooting arrows and one of them hits the point. At this point he uses poison mist. Frisia decides to help in the battle and uses healing against the previous spell. Riley suggests that she just stand aside, but she disagrees. The wizard's grandfather is still bursting with self-importance. He still has half his mana left, and with it, he intends to finish the fight and kill everyone. He covers his opponents with a blizzard. Riley, as always, is unimpressed. By this time, Nini had already caught her breath a little. The young master asks her to use one but very powerful spell against the enemy. She has to aim for the heart. Riley will aim there too. They have to hit it at the same time. Ian still has to use arrows, but this time to counter the blizzard spell. Huge, sharp blocks of ice emerge from the Master of Order's magic circles. Nini focuses on the strike. As Riley said, Ian takes over the defense. Lightening the mood a little, Riley jokes that if anything happens, the powerful saint will help them. A huge volley of ice arrows falls on the heroes. Jan repels them with a hail of ordinary arrows. After all, he can also use magic and breathe it into his weapon. He copes with the task assigned to him. Frisia takes care of the rest with the help of the barrier. 9 gathers all her remaining mana into one powerful blow. Suddenly, a block of ice bursts out from under the ground. But Riley manages to catch Saint Frisia before she can be harmed. A gust of wind tears his mask off. The girl sees his face and recognizes the guy. Riley puts on the hood of his robe, trying to hide from those who haven't noticed him yet. Nini is ready to use all her gathered strength in a strike, and she will do it at the command of her master. He takes a fighting stance, also ready to attack Astroy. Nini doesn't say it out loud, but she's still worried that she won't be able to finish off Astroya with her punch. After all, she didn't have much mana left after her previous spells. All of them are still alive thanks to their combined efforts, and even if she fails to finish this battle, she will die without a drop of regret. Riley gives the command to shoot. Nini launches a super punch at Astroya. She is torn apart from the inside by the amount of force used, but the girl holds onto her feet with all her might. Astroya does not take this blow. He easily uses a spell that counters Nini's attack. The girl understands that her strength is still not enough, but she can endure a little longer before her savior strikes. Riley throws the sword straight at the Magister. He flies through it, leaving a huge hole in the wizard's torso, thanks to the boost from Nini's magic. All this leads to an explosion, at the epicenter of which was the evil old man. The explosion dissipates and snow falls on the now safe area. It falls on Nini's face as she lies on the ground. Her body is covered with small accumulations of snow. Astroya lies bleeding in the corner, also covered in snow. St. Frisia and Ian find Nini on the ground and immediately rush to her side. The girl bursts into tears because she doesn't want her new friend to die. But Nini doesn't come to her senses, but a smile is frozen on her face. The girl lies unconscious in a chamber inside the temple, watched over by a worried St. Frisia. After the battle was over, the masked guy disappeared somewhere and was never seen again. John, like Frisia, understands that if it weren't for the stranger who appeared, they wouldn't have been able to defeat the master. After the battle, Frisia remembers that she saw John not only at the fencing competition, but also in the temple. Her memories are interrupted by Nini, who has woken up. Nini herself is surprised that she is alive. When Nini asks if she is okay, Frisia responds with an apology. After all, the saint did everything she could, but the girl's condition turned out to be much worse than she expected. Due to the magic that accumulated in Nini's body due to the experiments, mutations occurred in her, and they shortened the girl's lifespan. And they became her fatal disease. Nini asks with a smile if this can be fixed, already knowing the answer. Frisia gives her a positive answer. She is very sorry that she cannot help the girl who accomplished such a feat, but Nini reassures her that she was prepared to die at any moment. The only thing Nini wants to know is how long she has left to live. With tears in her eyes, Frisia replies that her illness is incurable, but that Nini's remaining time can be extended a little. And in the worst case, she will die before the end of summer, but if it works out, she will be able to live until the end of winter. However, the most realistic forecast falls on the end of autumn. Nini believes that this time will be more than enough for her. She thanks the saint. She also denies her gratitude because she was unable to repay the girl who saved her. Nini offers a way out. She wants her feet to never officially exist. This surprises Frisia. But the girl explains that all this became possible only thanks to another person, and she wants all the glory to go to him. Therefore, the former captive asks St. Frisia, as a token of gratitude for herself, to fulfill the wish of the man who saved them all. Frisia is surprised to learn that Nini knows the real identity of the savior. In the evening, under fireworks, the Ippolita family watches the rest of the fencing competition. Riley and Sarah discuss what is happening on the battlefield from a fencing technique perspective. He is again unhappy that the swordsman does not use his legs during the fight. Iris remarks that it is strange to see the young master so captivated. She turns to Jan, but he sits practically without strength. He is not as strong as he used to be and is very tired after the fight. Sarah asks Riley how long he remained at the scene of the battle, but he replies that he watched for a couple more minutes and immediately returned. It's time for the awards. The main award will be presented by the Prince of all Solia, Daniel. Before the award ceremony begins, he touches on what happened in the Magic Tower and informs everyone present that the case was solved by a member of an aristocratic family. He is attending today's competition as a spectator. Without hesitation, Daniel names Ippolit's last name. After the award ceremony that happened after the competition, Riley hides in the toilet. This is how he meets Frisia and Nini. The young master is angry because Nini gave away his location. Frisia tries to calm him down, saying that only she knows. Moreover, he was blessed by the goddess Irenessa. Naturally, this news does not please Riley. The girl tries to ask the guy to save the world again, but he interrupts her, saying exactly what she was about to tell him. Frisia is surprised. It hurts Riley to realize that he is right. The saint continues. Riley got his powers from the dragon. The young gentleman had not calculated such a scenario. A dragon is expected to appear soon, and this will lead to disaster. And Riley is the chosen one who must catch him. He is reminiscent of his nickname, Lazy Sword. Besides, he's still upset that Frisia called him gay. So, as expected, he refuses to cooperate. The saint reminds Riley that he was the one who stopped Astroa. He is horrified that she knows too much. Now he is even more angry with Nini. Frisia is still trying to calm him down, because she didn't tell anyone about his incredible strength, but only that he made a very big contribution to solving the asteroid case. But Riley sees Fine's actions as a betrayal. It turns out that Nini asked not to reveal this secret, but Frisia decided to give some honors to their savior, even though he did not ask for it. Regarding the award, he has a counter-argument in the form of what Daniel said at the competition. The saint reminds that she did not tell anyone about his power. However, Frisia notices that Riley's power is truly enormous and asks him to still catch the dragon, as stated in Revelation, to which he briefly refuses. Frisia doesn't understand what the reason is, because he easily defeated Master Astroi. Riley still denies it, saying he just wants to rest. Finishing his conversation with Frisia, he calls Nini for a one-on-one conversation. And in the Eiplet house, the head of the family reads the news from the local newspaper. They talk about what happened in Solia, about drugs, and about Magister Astroi. The newspaper also wrote that the youngest son helped solve this case, and for this he was awarded a medal from Prince Daniel himself. The father is extremely surprised, very pleasantly surprised. The Eiplet family, accompanied by Nini, leaves the competition site. Sarah comforts a crying Ian. Iris asks her son where he has been recently, but his excuse about the toilet is interrupted again by a crying Ian. This time, these are tears of pride for his master. People on the streets learn about Riley and whisper that he is not at all what is commonly believed. Riley was already tired of this attention, but he can only come to terms with it. Iris finally notices the fifth member of their group that has appeared. Riley tries to explain, and eventually admits that he picked up Nini in the toilet. He saw her use magic yesterday and thought it was excellent. And since he wanted to learn magic after visiting the magic tower, he thought he would need someone to teach him. To Ian's exclamation, he adds that he knows that Nini was harmed by the experiment in the tower. And this is another reason not to leave her alone. Iris, who recently joked about the appearance of the bride, naturally does not mind if they could take Nini with them to the estate. She wants to respect her son's choice. Finally, Nini introduces herself to everyone present from the Eiplet family. Since Nini will not only teach Riley magic, but will also remain a servant in their house. Sarah immediately takes note of her, promising to teach her manners. During that very tete-a-tete conversation, the young gentleman isolated the girl, because it was unclear what else she would manage to say. That's why he wants to keep her in close proximity. Frisia didn't want to let her go, but Riley had more arguments. And Nini is not against such a proposal, because she still has not heard the answer to her question that Riley promised to give her. It's time to return to the county. Moreover, a letter from the head of the family recently arrived, and he simply longs to see his family and discuss with them what happened. On the way, Nini thanks her savior, because she never even dreamed of leaving this terrible place. Before leaving, the company is found by Bishop Rivos. He's looking for Riley and Nini. They allegedly forgot their things in the temple. The priests hand them boxes, one for each. Rivos calls things trophies. One box contains the cloak of Master Astroi. In the other one is his bracelet and ring. The priest cannot speak about this openly in front of strangers, so he keeps it a secret. Nini asks if she has to accept these trophies. For obvious reasons, she doesn't like the idea. Rivosa insists. Riley is skeptical of his proposal. The bishop insists that the items are clean and safe. Riley consults with Nina. She has already checked the items for the presence of the Magister's magic. There is none left. Therefore, the young gentleman agrees to accept the gift. Iris reminds them that the Count is already tired of waiting for them, and they leave. But Frisia also finds the bishop's behavior suspicious. In the evening at the temple, Rivos tries to find out more information about Riley from the saint. He is already aware that the young master is the man from the prophecy. Frisia doesn't say a word and just watches him go. In fact, the girl received 3 revelations. According to the goddess, Frisia is about to face her first test. The culprit will be one of her close associates. The second and third revelations were about the dragon and the hero. Frisia hopes that Riley will ruin Rivosa's evil plans. That is why she did not tell the priest about her very first revelation. Upon arrival home, the travelers are met by the father of the family. Finn asks Riley to show him the medal right from the start. He is truly delighted. Sarah and John greet their master. He notices the new addition and asks what kind of child came with them. Iris suggests continuing the discussion inside the house. On the way to the entrance, Riley and Nine meet the Eiplet's middle son. Lloyd immediately throws out barbed remarks towards his younger brother. He doesn't believe that he actually received the medal and accuses Riley of lying. Lloyd asks him to show the medal. Reluctantly, Riley takes it out of his bosom and hands it to his middle son. He is extremely surprised that the medal is genuine, but he still doesn't understand how such a lazy and simpleton managed to get a medal. Riley suggests that Lloyd just take the medal if he liked it so much. And this makes the red-haired brother angry. Riley once again emphasizes how much he doesn't need this thing, and that he made no effort to get it. However, having calmed down a bit, Lloyd apparently really is thinking about taking the medal for himself, but he thought for too long, and Riley snatches the prize from his hands. This kind of bullying of the middle son is unacceptable, and Lloyd grabs his younger brother by the collar. The head of the family, who arrived just in time, stops him. Unable to contradict him, Lloyd lets Riley go. The always good-natured Iris enters the conversation. She is glad everyone is doing well and thanks family members back home for their prayers and concern. She whispers to Riley and Nine to leave quickly. This once again touches her son's heart. However, during this short conversation, Nini had already managed to become filled with contempt for the middle son of the Ipoletta clan. She doesn't get far enough before she hears Lloyd again using barbed language to remind her that Riley is lazy. He constantly misses training, and apparently has no interest in becoming the heir. This also irritates Sarah and Jan, but they try to control themselves. Nini's wild nature does not allow her to leave it at that, so she uses magic to trip up the departing Lloyd, and he falls awkwardly, face down on the ground. Finally, pleased with herself, she leaves. Later, the older brother puts a plaster on his younger brother's bruised forehead. Lloyd doesn't believe that he could be so clumsy and is sure that he fell for a reason. Leon doesn't believe it, but decides to just agree with him so as not to continue listening to his excuses. Instead, he wants to know how his little brother is doing. Lloyd noticed no changes, other than the fact that Riley had brought with him what he described as a strange and disgusting woman. It is immediately obvious that she is not an aristocrat, and Leon finds this strange and questionable. Besides her appearance and behavior, Lloyd also noticed a strange smell. Apparently, everyone in the Eiplet family has a strong sense of smell. Leon, however, is fixated on the fact that Riley might be up to something that will interfere with their plans. After all, he had no interest in women before, and he somehow earned the medal. They decide to pay more attention to this couple just in case. Left alone with himself, Leon reasons. He thinks about how his younger brother managed to earn this medal. After all, he never even took part in competitions. This drives him crazy, and no matter what plans Riley has, his older brother intends to ruin them so that he does not become the heir of the Eiplet family. The next day, life in Ipoletta County gradually returns to normal. Nine is given a maid's outfit, and Sarah gradually begins training her. Nini has many responsibilities. Although she was originally invited as the person who would teach the young master magic, Sarah's tough attitude even scares the newly minted maid a little. She feels like she's more afraid of her than her old blonde friend. She decided to conduct Nini's training right in the young master's room. He wonders why it is necessary to do this right here, but the senior maid really wants to have fun with the newcomer and establish order and discipline. In parallel to this training, Ian and Riley discuss what to do with the trophies they have received. The trophies turned out to be magical devices and the cloak of Master Astroy. Riley doesn't know how to use it and just offers to sell it under loud names like, "was used by Master Astroy." Ian isn't too keen on the idea, so Riley is going to learn how to use these things from a smart guy she knows. And Sarah, as she teaches, shows Nini how to tie a ribbon on the curtains into a knot, and how to properly remove stains from the carpet. After cleaning, they leave the young master's room. Before leaving, Sarah teaches Nini how to bow properly. As they leave the room, they meet Lloyd. The head maid bows to him in greeting, but Nini only frowns. Immediately, setting her on the right path, Sarah herself tilts her head. She whispers about her middle son's bad temper, and in order not to have problems with him, you need to treat him politely and not look at him with such a disdainful face. Lloyd refers to Nine as the girl Riley dragged in. She tries to answer him politely, explaining that she is currently being briefed on her duties. Lloyd wants to know her name, and Nini introduces herself. The middle son expresses a desire to talk to the first person his younger brother brought into the house. He wonders how his lazy younger brother managed to get a medal. She really doesn't like this remark towards the man who saved Nini's life. She analyzes his mana levels and comes to the conclusion that he doesn't have that much. At this time, Lloyd is waiting for his answer, and the silence of the maid angers him. Sarah tries to intervene in the conversation, seeing that it is not going well with Nini. She hasn't finished training the new maid yet and tries to justify her, but Lloyd shuts her up. He threatens Nini that he will throw her out if she does not answer clearly, to which Nini does not intend to respond politely and shows her habits from Lower Solia. Lloyd is not her master, and he did not bring her here to obey him. Hysterical laughter rolls over Lloyd, who is not used to hearing swearing in this house and, in principle, is not used to such an attitude towards himself. He swings his arm at Nini to give her a hard slap, but she puts him to sleep with a spell, and the middle son falls to the ground unconscious. Sarah is incredibly horrified by what happened. Nini calmly informs her that in 30 minutes the gentleman will wake up. She suggests that she simply carry him to the bed so that he will think that he dreamed it all. Sarah is surprised that Nini was able to use magic so easily, and Nini calmly tells her that she is the owner of the 6th circle of magic. Nini tries to soften the situation a little by saying that she has already learned some lessons for herself, and the former one from Lower Solia would have covered him, that is, Lloyd, with a 3-story curse, and not just sent him with one word and put him to sleep. The newly minted maid also understands that with her character she may be reprimanded more than once. Therefore, he suggests using just a little bit of magic, to which Sarah does not have time to react. As Riley comes out of the room, he doesn't understand why Lloyd is sleeping on the floor outside his door. But he doesn't care so much, and after taking Nini, they leave for training. Unable to refuse such a cutie, this time Sarah forgives her, having taken a promise from Nini that she would forget everything she had learned in Lower Solia. Nini and Riley move to the study room. There the girl offers the gentleman tea for the sake of decency, but he refuses, saying that she is a sorceress. But she reminds Riley that she is now also a servant. Along the way she calls him a fool, for which she immediately apologizes, trying to control her manners. Riley wants to sort out the things they took as trophies. He doesn't understand how to use any of the 3 things, and Nini's knowledge ends with assumptions. She didn't see the ring and bracelet on the master when she was being experimented on. He only put on the cloak but didn't use it. Since they both don't know what to do with them, Riley suggests that her new maid keep the things for herself, and later, with the help of his friend, they will figure out how they work. Nini, having learned about his new acquaintance, is perplexed why Riley did not decide to learn magic from him. After all, she only reached the 6th circle thanks to medication, and her abilities are not as strong as those of natural wizards. Riley replies that it didn't have to be her who was his teacher. However, she wanted to gain freedom and stop being someone's toy. Some people thought it was a magical masterpiece. Others found it completely useless. Nobody thought about the little girl's feelings. Riley tries to convey to the maid that she doesn't have to be useful just to be around someone. This is what it means to be free. It's a lesson he learned in his past, and he wants Nini to learn it too. He invites her not to think about the reason for existence, but to simply live. These words touch Nini because no one has ever said them to her before. But the romantic atmosphere is ruined because, in addition to the main reason, Riley chose her as a teacher, because his friend said that he would not teach him magic under threat of death. Riley's friend knows about his mastery of the sword and is afraid that he will almost become Satan if he learns magic as well. The boys head to Riley's friend. On the way, Nini tells about the structure of magic. The number of magic circles a wizard has depends on how many circles or rings are wrapped around his heart. Nini is currently in her 6th round. The source of all things is light. At least in this world it is. This is the remark made by Riley, to which the girl asks again if he has been to other worlds, and Riley simply denies it. Returning to their discussion, Nini explains that light is the foundation. It is taught to wizards from the very beginning, because creating everything from nothing is a miracle. Light magic is easy to use, but it requires knowing the magician's characteristic trait. That is, what he can be good at. For example, Riley asks Nina what she is good at. She can't answer what exactly because she thinks that she's good at everything and can handle any task. And perhaps her self-confidence is the reason why she was the only one to survive the experiment in the tower. And since they can't figure out what makes Riley unique, they'll also ask his friend this question. They had almost arrived at the meeting place. Nini thinks about how outstanding this wizard must be, if even Riley speaks of him with such respect, and despite the fact that the girl doesn't have much longer to live. But she has the sixth circle and thinks she can match his strength. Her enthusiasm fades a little when, instead of a beautiful estate, they end up in an empty pub, where, and besides, his owner has disappeared somewhere. Riley is looking for his friend Endal. He reluctantly goes out to the screams, thinking that more visitors have arrived. He reminds that the establishment is closed today, and that it was necessary to read the sign. But then he sees that his friend has arrived and calms down. Even though Endal has just woken up, he is glad to see Riley. He immediately asks him about what happened in Solia and whether the metal is too tight for him. He also notices a girl next to Riley and assumes that she is the new maid. His guess is confirmed, but Nini is surprised by such a meeting. You could even say I'm shocked. But why? Riley continues his conversation with Endal and tells him about the information that was whispered to him in the temple. After all, St. Frisia said there that he must find and catch that very Endal, although she did not specify that he was the dragon. Endal just smirks at this statement. Riley asks again if there are any other dragons besides him, at which Endal burst out laughing. The local holy men, in his opinion, have gone completely mad. It's unclear why Riley was asked to do this. Endal asks him if he is going to become a dragon slayer now, but Riley is only unhappy with the new nickname that was invented. In response to Riley's previous question, Endal reveals that he is the only dragon in Solia. There are others, but their last meeting was about 3,000 years ago. While telling his story, he mixes soft drinks for the kids. The dragon says that it won't interfere with Nini's work, so she can drink. According to Endal, he does not intend to create any dangerous situations in Solia. After all, this will only add to his troubles, and since he also wants a free life, he asks Nini to keep her mouth shut. Showing the seriousness of his intentions, Endal reveals the dragon's eye to Nine. Riley interrupts him, reminding him why they came here. He shows his friend the artifacts, and he reminds him that this is just an inn. Here he sells alcohol and doesn't want to do anything like that here. But the real point isn't the activity itself. It's that Riley didn't ask for it in the tone he would have liked. Having dealt with this, Endal begins to check the artifacts. Nini is amazed that Endal can research 3 things at once and do it so quickly. He finished in literally a minute. To begin with, Riley is most interested in the cloak. It turns out that there is nothing special about it, and when put on a person, he becomes invulnerable to any weather conditions. Nini adds that this helps in using any spells, because no weather will interfere with them. The next lot is a bracelet, and it is something from the inventory category. If you release a little magic, the warehouse will open. If the bracelet breaks, all the things inside it will disappear. There is no way to fix this thing. Endal throws the remaining ring to Nini and offers to put it on. The girl does just that. When you put on the ring, it begins to attract mana that flies around. However, Riley had already worn it once and felt no effect. Endal thinks it's because he's a monster, and Nini doesn't understand what he's talking about. Riley puts a stop to this discussion, since it won't make anyone feel better if too much information is revealed. Realizing that these items are of no particular use to him, he gives them to Nini, but she is afraid to accept them. Riley just doesn't want to carry them around, and if his maid doesn't want to accept the gift, then she should at least carry them around for him. Along the way, the young gentleman asks his friend if he can measure magic. Just recently, Endal got a measuring stone, Riley wants to try it on her new maid. Hearing about this, Endel notes that she is unusual. There's a lot of stuff mixed up in her, especially in her eye under the scar. Riley adds that this might be why she has such a strange mana color with any spell. Endel is surprised by this and confirms that his friend has met a rather interesting person. He also notes to himself that Nini did not stay long, and he wonders if her master knows about this. His thoughts are interrupted by Riley, who also wouldn't mind measuring his mana. Endel doesn't like this. He believes that if Riley learns magic, he could conquer the entire world, to which he actively objects, since the only reason is his laziness, and he got tired of picking apples on his own. They move outside to that very stone. Riley puts his hand on it, similar to what he did in the magic tower, and the stone reacts belatedly. This characterizes Riley's magical abilities. Endel notes that he hasn't seen anything like this for a long time. They and Nini realize that the young master has an ability related to time. Under Riley's influence, the stone is cut off and destroyed over time. This means that he can only use time magic, but not the rest. For example, Endel creates a fireball of a normal average wizard, and shows what will happen to him if Riley tries to use him. He notes that his fireball will look like a match. The young gentleman is upset by this news, because with the use of magic, his life would be even better than with the presence of the internet. Even the dragon doesn't know what the internet is. Nini tries to cheer Riley up by pointing out that people with time magic usually become bosses. Riley is not at all happy about this, and he finds out if there is magic that can rewind time, to which Nini replies negatively. But if you use time acceleration on apple trees, the apples will ripen faster. She tries her best to cheer Riley up, but he's not too happy about it. Now the responsibility of picking apples falls on Nini. They return to the estate in the evening, and Riley talks about how he doesn't have anything special while creating a ball of light. Nini is surprised that he has already learned this. However, Riley adds that the spell only lasts for half a second. It didn't matter to Nini that he couldn't identify her special features. After Astroy's death, she won't have to use magic in such quantities. The older brothers enter the room. They are welcomed with Riley and Nine. Lloyd asks where his little brother went. The younger one replies that he is going to the village of foliage, and I only went with Nini, because she would be enough as security. Iris joins them, and he tells everyone present that a guest has come to visit them during the absence of Riley and Nini. This is one of the high-ranking priests, Mr. Revosa. He once helped Riley's mother overcome her illness. Revosa greets Mr. Riley and Mrs. Nini politely, even bowing to her, which shocks the older brothers. They ask the priest why he treats her so politely, to which he is surprised that Riley did not tell his brothers about the origin of the new servant. With Nina's permission, Revosa tells his older brothers about how Nini and Riley caught and defeated the great magician Astroy, and that Nini has the 6th magic circle. Riley doesn't care that Nina's identity is exposed. He is more concerned about the bishop's possible plans. Although he seems kind, he is clearly a dangerous person. Besides, he had no particular reason to show up at their estate. Riley is more than sure that he is up to no good. After dinner, Revosa leaves the Eiplet house. He suggests that Riley drop by more often, and he responds sarcastically. The priest thanks Iris for the warm welcome. She is always glad to see him. Revosa leaves, saying that he will pray for their health. Riley talks to Nini about seeing right through Revosa, and although he formally came to check on his mother's condition, he spent the entire time talking to the young master and his maid. This means he was pursuing a different goal. Revosa also gave Nini some kind of box. Most likely he came to the Eiplet house because of the prophecy of St. Frisia. After all, a dragon was supposed to appear in Solia soon, and Frisia asked Riley to catch it. And the gifts in the box that Nini is holding are most likely a bribe that Riley does not approve of. But Riley, despite the bribes, is not going to fulfill the prophecies in any case, because he doesn't want to strain himself. He was already tired of all this, and so were the saints. So Nini simply dumps the bishop's offering into the storeroom in the bracelet. Now, after their trip to Soli, they shouldn't have any troubles anytime soon. Nini is afraid that because of these words, everything will turn out exactly the opposite. And that's what happens, because the next moment they are already standing in Riley's father's office. Finn Ippolit had already learned from his brothers that the new servant was a sorceress of the Sixth Circle. Before this, Jan talked about how this girl was a sorceress, but did not specify what circle she belonged to. After all, Master Astroy had the Seventh Circle, he was going crazy, but Nini was absolutely normal. This surprises the head of the family. He does not understand why the girl got a job as a maid. With her level and the achievement of killing Astroy, she could have gotten a much better job. However, Nini replies that she enjoyed living in this mansion and faithfully serving everyone living in it. Here she found what she had lost in the magic tower. According to their and Riley's legend, she followed him all the way from Solia. Finn asks the girl what she thinks about his son. Riley is a little confused. It seems like everyone around him is trying to marry him off. But Nini quickly comes to her senses and replies that she considers him a truly good person. Finn is getting kinder before our eyes, but Riley doesn't like the atmosphere that has emerged. Continuing her story, Nini considers the Sixth Circle to be the result of her past and wishes to live in the present, and for the rest of the time allotted to her for life, she does not mention life out loud. She wants to live a quiet life and happily serve her master. Finn wants to know if everything is okay with Nini, but she denies it, saying that they treat her very well. The head of the family is glad to hear this and asks her to stay close to Riley and help him in every possible way, which makes Nini happy. Now that they had finished their conversation, it was Riley's turn to speak. He was about to say something to his father. In the summer, for the so-called holidays, he wants to go to Rinfield, as he usually does. Meanwhile, the older brothers are in Leon's office discussing what happened over dinner. Leon speculates that Riley was most likely able to obtain such a sorceress somehow under circumstances related to the medal. Lloyd urgently wants to perform some kind of feat, because now, due to the incident in Solia, there is a possibility that Nini will receive the inheritance. Leon also understands this, and by coincidence is holding a brochure in his hands about the search for a dark magician in Rinfield. Lloyd offers to find and kill him, but his older brother stops him. He understands that Riley will be heading there in the summer. Moreover, his father allowed him. Leon thinks it would be natural if his brother never came back from there. And then summer came. Ian runs around Riley, asking questions about how long they're going away. The young gentleman thinks that the period will be extended by 3 weeks. He promises the old man that he will return safe and sound. 9 installed a communication channel on Iris's hand mirror, so they will be able to contact them at least every day. Iris is not worried about her son at all, because Nini will be next to him. Nini is very touched by this statement. The assembled family wishes Nini and Riley a safe trip. Sarah asks Nini to act according to the training she gave her. As a gift for the journey, Iris gives the new maid a black package. There is an item that Riley used to use, but now Iris has modified it to fit the girl. At this point, everyone says goodbye and the carriage starts moving. Riley is looking forward to the trip. They arrive at Endal's in the middle of the night, and he is clearly unhappy with being woken up. Riley asks him to help her teleport. This makes the dragon even more angry. In a fit of emotion, he shoots fire at Riley, but he simply dodges it. The shell burns the tree behind him. Endal promises to move Riley where he needs him if he gives him his handmaiden. Riley has no intention of giving people away like things and refuses. Moreover, she is somewhat similar to him, and he likes it. There is another reason which he decides not to tell Endal, who has already burst into laughter. His anger was gone, and he agreed to take the boys where they needed to go. But appearing in the middle of the city will be strange, so the teleportation will happen to the forest nearby. Before teleporting, Endal raises another question. This is about Nini. He doesn't even know how to say it more gently, but Riley understands his question without words. It concerns the lifespan of Nini. Endal asks Riley what he's going to do in this situation, but the young master simply remains silent. Nini, who is sitting in the carriage at this time and waiting for teleportation, decides to look at the gift. She opens the black package. There turns out to be a beautiful white mask, split in half, which will just cover the scar on one half of her face. Iris Nini's sweet gesture even makes her shudder a little. The girl is moved to tears. Her illness decides to make itself known, and the girl coughs up blood. Getting my white glove dirty. She remembers what St. Frisia said, because it is summer now and she may soon die. But she is still very happy to spend her time the way she is spending it now. Meanwhile, Riley and Endal have already prepared for teleportation, and the young master calls the maid to him. Endal teleports the boys with a pillar of bright white light. They appear in the middle of the forest right during the rain, and besides, there is a huge ogre standing literally in front of them. Riley immediately draws his sword, but he is not afraid, rather angry at where Endal teleported them to. The ogre attacks first and pulls the tree out of the ground by the roots. Riley is not intimidated by this, but Nini runs up to him, intending to use magic against the ogre, but the master stops her. He asks to put up a protective screen from the rain while he sorts it out. The girl asks him to be careful and does so. Riley finds it sweet that she's worried about him. The ogre attacks him first and swings a tree. Riley deftly jumps onto the trunk and runs up to the ogre. So far he hasn't attacked him, but only throws out barbed phrases. The ogre swings the tree again. Riley dodges. The opponent swings and hits the ground with the barrel, but the young gentleman continues to dodge. Enraged, the ogre strikes again and hits the ground, breaking his weapon and leaving a huge dent. Reasoning that with such dangerous teleportations there is no point in using them at all, Riley finally attacks Ogre. With one swing of his sword he cuts it in half. The monster's profuse wounds are sprayed with Riley's blood. Nini is standing under the barrier and is not dirty. The young gentleman is angry at his friend, who teleported them there obviously on purpose. Nini suggests that the master use magic to clean the stains. She casts the spell Cleanse, but it doesn't work. It only made Riley dirtier. While they are arguing about this spell, the ogre somehow comes to his senses again. This time Riley lets Nini deal with him. She's going to do it quickly and neatly. A magic circle appears under the ogre, and the girl uses the eraser spell. This spell is accompanied by dark purple butterflies and a pillar of light. Once they're done with ogre, they're about to clean up the stains and leave. A certain red-haired girl watches what is happening from a tree. Having dealt with the blood stains, the boys try to get their bearings using maps. There are no signs here, so it's a bit difficult to find your way around. Nine alerts Riley that someone is nearby, as she knew about it when she used search magic just in case. Since they have no choice in any case, they simply continue on their way. When they leave, the ogre reappears in the same place where he died twice. He stands up like a zombie, blood pouring from his eyes. And Riley and Nini came across a group of people on the way and are already standing surrounded by them. Riley starts talking to strangers because he sees them for the first time, despite how many times he has come to Rinfield. The same red-haired girl accuses Riley of pretending, although he knows everything. And it's all about Nini's magic. The girl accuses the maid of being a black magician. Nini is surprised and does not understand what these people are talking about. They also explain that recently a black magician has been wandering around Rinfield and accusing her of being him. After all, they saw how she used dark magic and that the cleansing spell was clearly a cover for some kind of denigration or corruption. Riley also doesn't understand what's going on. The young gentleman is going to sort out the situation. He is very angry about the gun pointed at him. Even the red-haired girl is scared because of such a dark aura. Riley gets even more angry and accuses those present of explaining themselves. He demands that they clarify the situation. The attackers mistook Nine for a dark mage because of the color of her mana. Riley asks her maid if all dark mages really have that kind of mana, to which Nine simply shakes her head. He tells the attackers that this is simply a characteristic of Nini's body. Apart from mana color, rogues have no other arguments. Riley is about to say something that the attackers should think about. He swears on his family's name that his maid is not a black magician. Hearing the name Eiplet, the attackers fall into a stupor, and since he is being falsely accused here, he is going to act like a real black magician and kill everyone present. Nini stops him and wants to tell his story. Her story deeply touched the leader of the gang, and she burst into tears. Nini tries to calm the crying girl, but she is restless. She apologizes to the maid in tears. Riley reminds the redhead that she was going to kill them, and her crying appearance also reminds her of Jan. All the former attackers apologize to Nini and Riley. Now they themselves are interested in learning more about the black magician. The company says that he has long acquired a bad reputation, and the red-haired girl is one of his victims. The guys accompanying her hand over a leaflet with a description of the villain Riley. It turns out that the black magician can control corpses, and the girl's father once became his victim. So now she is on the path of revenge and wants to catch him. Their conversation is interrupted by a risen ogre who reaches them. This time he's given less screen time, and Riley once again sends him to the other side with one blow. This amazes everyone present. A figure in a dark robe stands somewhere nearby and senses that the ogre is dead. He says that it has become difficult for him to find a good carcass lately. Nini and Riley continue their journey under the umbrella. A red-haired girl joins them. From Riley's stories, it turns out that she knows Ian, but only as a mercenary hero. She passes a note with her address to the travelers. Since they are in Rinfield for a long time, she invites them to dinner. Riley takes the note. The girl wishes them a good rest, but Riley and Nini have already reached the city. They choose where to go first and decide to eat. Nini offers him some hot soup, but he interrupts her, saying that he should eat some pancakes. This is a local traditional dish and is definitely worth trying. Nini naturally hears about this for the first time. They are served pancakes at a local restaurant. Nini doesn't really like the way they look, but Riley is delighted. She calls the dish vomit that is impossible to eat. Riley is deeply affected by this. He demands that she apologize to the pancake lovers on a rainy day. Riley pressures the girl to try it and not even dare ask for more after that. She agrees, but continues that even in Lower Solia they don't eat that kind of food. Nini closes her eyes and takes a bite. It turns out that pancakes are really very tasty. Riley asks her with a smile if she liked it. The girl confirms that she was wrong. The next bite is for Riley, and his taste buds are simply rejoicing over it. He is nostalgic for the old days when he often ate such pancakes. Nini asks him again what times he is talking about, and he asks her to just not worry about it. He invites Nini to clink glasses of rice wine, and she reminds that Mrs. Iris asked them not to get drunk. Although Riley is a little hesitant, she says that everything is fine and they won't die from this. Nini understands this perfectly well, but she is more concerned that they will violate his mother's instructions. The young gentleman continues to press, because if she just tries, nothing will happen. Nini gives in to persuasion and tries. She also really likes the taste of rice wine. She drinks the cup in one gulp, tipping it over to the bottom. Now she looks like Riley, who tried cola for the first time in this world. He is a little surprised by such enthusiasm, but later, with a smile, lets the girl get away with it. They continue their dinner calmly, but there is a strange man in the establishment with them who is loudly chomping. This man in the black robe is clearly ruining the atmosphere, and Riley doesn't like it. The man mutters under his breath that he should do even more, but does not specify what. Riley decides it's time for them to leave, and she and Nini leave the establishment. On the way to the exit, the young gentleman glances at the stranger in the robe and is glad that he will not have to see him again. Sometime after they leave the eatery, the stranger finishes his meal. The waiter approaches him and asks how he will pay. He is already preparing to tell the man in the robe the required amount, but he pounces on him. The stranger uses magic and calls it payment, and as a reward he receives blood splatter all over the floor. Nini and Riley take a walk in the rain. The young gentleman asks the girl if she liked it. She understands that it was alcohol after all, but it was very different from what they drank in Lower Solia. The rice wine was much tastier. Now they are drinking buddies, so Riley asks that this information not be reported to his mother. Riley discusses how they should buy 2 raincoats. Walking under an umbrella in the constantly raining Rinfield will be uncomfortable. But Nini, on the contrary, likes to walk under the same umbrella with the young gentleman. Having said this, she immediately comes to her senses, attributing everything to drunken delirium. Besides, she can't allow herself to think about any romance, because she will die soon. While Nini and Riley are resting in Rinfield, that same priest is going to follow them. His face changes when he finds out that the two are in Rinfield. The second priest perceives the changed facial expressions of his superior as a reaction to the distance between the cities. Ravosa hopes that Riley has not encountered the unknown man in the hood who is supposed to create a large number of puppets. But Ravosa is not afraid for Riley, but for the Black Magician. The priest is going to follow him, under the pretext that Riley is the very hero chosen by the goddess Irenessa. Saint Frisia catches them in this conversation. She also realizes that Ravosa is up to something. She hints to him that it would be better not to pursue the young master, but he considers this a manifestation of willfulness. The fate of the entire world depends on Riley, so he must be accompanied at all times. Frisia doesn't like it, but she can't do anything about it. She leaves, saying that she warned Ravosa, and now he can do whatever he wants. Frisia is so distrustful of this priest because he was also mentioned in Revelation. Riley and Nini decide to visit the library. Despite the damp climate of Rhineland, the books are preserved in almost pristine condition. The young gentleman suggests splitting up. Each of them will choose a book for themselves, and later they will meet in the center of the library. Nini objects, saying she's supposed to be guarding him, but Riley reminds him that he really doesn't need guards. So he sends the girl to choose a book for herself. They split up and Nini wonders what to choose. There are many books here related to magic, but she decides to look for culinary books to learn the recipe for those pancakes that she and Riley ate. Between the shelves of books she meets that same red girl. Her name is Nara Basilisk. She is looking for books about black magicians to prepare herself with more information to meet her enemy. And it turns out that Nini chose books that contained information on how to deal with a hangover. Nara reminds about her invitation, and again invites the girl and her master to visit her. But their conversation is interrupted by a piercing scream. Sensing danger, the girls set out to find Mr. Riley. On the way, they discuss the scream they heard, and Nara has a bad feeling about it. On the way to the central hall, they come across a mountain of corpses of library employees. Nini is puzzled as to who could have done this. She senses traces of magic. From these traces, Nini determines that the enemy's skills are at the highest level. She asks Naru to imagine thoughts on Riley. She doesn't understand why this is necessary, but she does it. With the help of her eye, Nini tracks his location. Now the gentleman is on the second floor. As Nini looks around for the stairs, Nara realizes whose tracks they just encountered. She sees dark spots on the corpses. Their path is blocked by the living dead. This is the work of the black magician she is looking for. This man turned Nara's entire family into monsters. Nili suggests finding Riley and then moving to a safe place. Nara refuses because as a true hero and as her father, she must first help the remaining living people. She sends Nini to find the master, while she stays behind to fight. The girl finds her master on the second floor, unaware of what happened. She reports that there was a disaster in the library. She assumes that a black magician is operating in the library along with Nara. With animated corpses roaming the library, Riley and Nini need to leave immediately. Only now does the young gentleman notice that something is really happening. 3 reanimated corpses notice people on the second floor and rush towards them. Riley is extremely unhappy that someone has disturbed his peace again. He makes an analogy with a zombie movie, but Nini doesn't know what a movie is or what a zombie is. One of the 3 corpses has already reached the second floor and is attacking Riley. He knocks him out with a blow to the head with a book. He agrees that the situation is unpleasant, but not so terrible that he should run to it at full speed. Nara dealt with the corpses on the first floor. Now she intends to find the main culprit. This man once attacked her family. He said something about the army and getting rid of suffering. Then, still very little, Nara in tears begged her father to leave. The black magician had already killed her uncle and sister, and she didn't want to just die like that. But her father did not want to run away in fear. He should have at least tried to stop this man's evil deed. Filled with her father's heroism, Nara intends to avenge him. And as if on a silver platter, fate presents her with her enemy. He is looking for a book called Rinfield Clouds. And so many corpses in the library should have helped him, but none of them have found the book yet. As soon as he complained about this, a single corpse handed him the book he had been looking for so long. With the help of this book, he plans to cause acid rain in the city. Nara hears his reasoning and it makes her angry. But the black magician does not notice her and continues to talk about his plans. and with the help of acid rain, he plans to make all the inhabitants of Rinfield his puppets. The black magician teleports away before he can meet Nara. Riley and Nini leave the library without engaging in combat. Nini wants to say something in response to this, but the young master stops her. He came here to relax, not to get involved in unnecessary fights. They ran away, just as ordinary people would have done. Riley is once again overcome with a wave of nostalgia for the past. Some people did not idolize him, but instead blamed him for unnecessary deaths. Riley plans to continue to ignore situations like this that happen in Rinfield. As they leave the library, Nara catches up with them. It reminds me of how Riley killed the ogre with one blow. The girl reports that the black magician has found the book he needs. He's going to cause acid rain in the city to turn people into even more living corpses. With tears in her eyes, she asks the master for help. Nara fears that the acid rain will turn all the inhabitants of Rinfield into zombies, and Riley confirms that they can become puppets. But not even a week has passed since the beginning of his vacation, so he refuses to help. Nara reminds him that this man killed her father, but Riley is unmoved. He walks away and Nini tries to stop him, but ends up just following him. Their next few days pass like a normal vacation, while Nara continues to search for her main enemy. They intersect periodically. Riley tried to be funny, but when Nine asked him the question directly, he couldn't answer it positively. Meanwhile, Nara's search was crowned with success. She came face to face with the black magician. Directly telling him that she is going to cut off his head, Nara introduces herself to him and states that he will be punished for killing her entire family. The black magician can tell from her eyes what family she comes from. He remembered them clearly, because he had seen the same eyes in people from her tribe, and he would never be able to forget the look in the corpses burning with his fire. This angers Naru, and she attacks the black mage. He is glad of the chance to kill the only sleeping girl from the basilisk family. However, he himself does not intend to fight and calls upon his dead minions. Nara is surprised because the black magician resurrected her father. The girl is stunned, but she will have to fight with her dead relative. Coming to her senses, she is filled with rage and rushes forward. The black mage sends several more corpses in her direction. During their battle, Riley and Nine watch the fireworks. Riley doesn't look pleased with the sight. He asks Nini if she is having fun. She answers with a calm smile that she is never happy. They both know the reason why they both don't enjoy spending time quietly. Riley finally comes to the point where he needs to deal with the black magician. At this time, a stormy battle continues between two sworn enemies. Nara deftly gets rid of the dead minions and attacks the mage directly. But he puts the girl's own father in front of her blow, and she pierces him with her spear. Even though her father died long ago, it is still difficult for the girl to fight against him, even in the form of a zombie. Her teammates try to bring her to her senses, while the black magician directs a stream of arrows at them. The enemy outnumbers Nara's team not only in strength, but also in numbers. Therefore, her teammates suggest that she retreat, but the girl does not want to abandon her father. At this time, behind her back, more crowds of corpses rise up. The black mage only egged her on, which only made Naru even more angry, and she rushed towards the enemy. This is exactly what he wanted, and again he puts the puppet from Nara's father under her spear. While the red-haired girl is trying to recover from her moral trauma, the dark mage casts an air hammer against her. The blow sends Naru flying into a nearby tree, and the villain states that he has completed all of his preparations for the acid rain. He is already ready to give Rinfield eternal life in his afterlife. On a count of 3-1, their fight ends. Nara tries to ask him to stop, but the magician is not willing to budge. He reaches 0. But despite all his efforts, the raindrops for some reason do not reach the ground and freeze in the air. At that moment, Riley appears from behind him, and people in the city are surprised by this behavior of the rain. The fireworks continue, and the frozen drops in the air look very beautiful. Civilians don't even suspect the danger they are in. The black mage asks Riley to introduce himself, but he doesn't see any point in it. Nara is surprised to see the young master here because he didn't plan to come. Riley tells the mage that all his efforts were wasted, which greatly angers his opponent. It turns out that the raindrops in the air are being held by Nini all this time, and at the mental command of her master, she weakens her spell only within the radius of the drops falling on the black magician. They fall on him and pin him to the ground. In an attempt to save himself, the enemy sends the dead to Riley, but the young master has dealt with worse. He notices the opponent's talent, but he himself is naturally more powerful. The angrier the magician gets, the more corpses he raises to the surface of the earth. Among his puppets are ogre, goblin, even a mage who can cast spells. It's not just people, and that's what interests Riley. But no matter what the enemy is who will rise from the grave once again, he doesn't care. Cutting down enemies in his path is a usual thing for him. Riley didn't even need to use mana to deal with them. The black mage is angry that Riley interrupted his prayer, but the young master is adamant. With one swing of his sword, he sends the black mage flying off the cliff, where he dissipates into thin air. Just like him, his puppets also disperse. Nara says goodbye to her father, and Riley wonders how Nini is doing. At this time, the girl is standing in the highest part of the city, already bleeding. She tries to gradually use up her mana to hold on to the drops for as long as possible. So far, she's succeeding, but her strength is running out. Besides holding back the drops, it also cleared the clouds and finally completed its mission. The girl is happy that she saved innocent people. The next day, Riley and Nini continue their vacation as if nothing had happened. The newspapers have already written about yesterday's rain event. They also wrote there that the black magician has still not been caught. Nini is very happy that they were able to save people. Riley calls her over to him, and the girl is afraid that he will scold her. She doesn't want to upset her master, but he tells her with a smile that she has worked hard. This touches the girl. Of course, he himself is pleased, but it seems that his maid is enjoying this vacation more than he is. Riley once again asks Nini not to apologize and just continue her vacation. At this moment, the girl remembers something important. She and the gentleman completely forgot that it was necessary to contact his mother via a hand mirror. Unwavering in the face of danger, Riley is horrified by the fact that they broke the promise they made to their mother. Immediately, Nini takes out a mirror and they try to pull themselves together to contact Iris. The two call home and Iris looks extremely worried on the other end of the line. Now she is waiting for an explanation. Iris asks if they have any connection problems in another city, to which Nini answers her honestly that there are none. Riley doesn't like this answer, but the maid can't lie to his mother. Iris's anger passes and she just wants to know if the guys are okay. Nini calms her down. But at that moment Ian appears on the background, crying as usual. He also butts into the conversation, but Riley reassures him that they will be back soon. Riley apologizes to his mother. He promises that this will not happen again. Now it's Sarah's turn to appear in the frame. She wants to contact Nini. The head maid reminds the younger one that she was obliged to contact the house, even if her master had forgotten about it. Nini apologizes as best she can, and Sarah, having let off steam, finishes scolding her. She asks if the guys saw the fireworks. Recalling last night and all her efforts, Nini replies that the fireworks were the most beautiful thing she has ever seen in her life. Meanwhile, Bishop Rivos appears at the site of the Black Magician's death. The Black Magician's name was Uriel, and he warned him of the danger. Tom shouldn't have stuck his nose where he wasn't wanted. From now on, they will act more carefully. And in the city, Nara comes to meet Riley. She wants to discuss something important with him. In fact, Nara is not quite human. From her last name, it is clear that she is Basilisk. The girl mentions Ian in conversation, and Riley doesn't quite understand what she means by that. The girl wants to go with them to the estate, but Riley immediately refuses her. She really wants to see Mr. Yan, as this is her father's request, and after this meeting, Nara is going to scatter his ashes. Bowing to Riley, she begs for a meeting with the former mercenary hero, but she still manages to force an agreement. And now Nara is already a coachman in their carriage. Riley is a little afraid to let them get close to each other, because if they do, they will just fill the room with tears. And Nini is just glad that the gentleman's mood has improved at least a little. The girl herself doesn't feel very well. Even Riley notices this and worries about her. But Nini replies that everything is fine with her and starts talking about basilisks. She explains that with their red eyes they can determine the nature of mana. Nara overhears this conversation and adds details to it. There is energy of red, blue, white, and extremely rare dark violet. This is exactly the kind of energy that the dark magician had and that Nini has. The gentleman wanted to ask the girl to tell him more about this type of energy, but then they encountered another cart on their way. The mustachioed, pumped-up driver recognizes Naru. She asks her old friend Cabal where he is heading. He replies that his old friend is in Rinfield, so he's going there. When Nara mentions the suspicious priest, Cabal frowns and replies that he knows nothing. Instead, he notices that the carriage contains people of noble birth, and Nara asks him not to poke his nose into other people's business. Nara advises the mustachioed man to curb his curiosity and go away from here, to which he does not resist. And this is where their meeting ends. In her entire life, Nara had only met 4 people with dark purple mana. It was an unknown man in an unnamed village, a priest, that is, Revosa, Cabal, whom they had just met, and a black magician. But she suspects that their numbers do not end there. Cabal finally meets with Bishop Revosa. They discuss treatment or the imminent revival of Uriel. He was the left hand in their plan, and without him they definitely wouldn't be able to fight. There were 2 more people supposed to be at the meeting, but they didn't show up, which angered the mustachioed man. Revosa tries to calm him down, saying that they have important things to do. Trying to figure out what to do next, they come to the conclusion that they need to move the time of prayer and slowly deal with the accumulated problems. Until then, they need to patch up their left arm. The Eiplet crew, along with Nara Basilisk, successfully reach home. There they are immediately met by Jan. He pounces on the young gentleman with tears. Pouring out his soul to him, the butler tells him how worried he was. Nara recognizes her old friend, and Riley asks him to come to his senses because he just brought a guest to him. Jan also recognizes the girl. Nara bows before him and is about to introduce herself, but he himself recognizes her because she is the last survivor of the Basilisk family. They move into the house where Nara tells her story. Jan is very sorry about what happened. He calls her father an excellent mercenary. The girl can be proud of him and proud of herself because she went through a lot alone. Jan intends to inform Finai Pellet about the guest as soon as he returns. It turns out that 2 days ago the head of the family received a letter from Solia Castle and immediately left the estate. Someone is going to attack the borders. The brothers stayed in the house because it can't be left unattended. Riley wonders where his mother is, but he hears the sound of breaking glass and runs to the scene. Nini dropped some dishes due to her hands shaking so much. It's hard for her, but she tries to hide it. Riley insists that she not continue working with such shaky hands. But the girl wants to do everything in her power. She asks the master not to leave her, after which she loses consciousness. Periodically coming to her senses, Nini hears snippets of conversations between Riley and Endal. They discuss her condition, and the dragon doubts that she will last longer than until autumn. He doesn't understand why she didn't just take a vacation and say she was sick. Riley again draws an analogy between himself and the girl, because he, just like her, desperately thought that he had to save the world. But this self-sacrifice of his only tore him to pieces. Because Nine had used up so much mana in Rinfield, her lifespan had been greatly shortened. Riley remembers Endal asking him to give Nini back, but the young master asks his friend not to take her, but to save her. The girl comes too, but she is still not allowed to work. Through the window she watches the young gentleman lying on the ground under a tree and worries that he will catch a cold. He sees some unpleasant dream, and Nini's magic eye reacts to it. She sees his dream with modern buildings and other people. Even though Riley looks different in this dream, Nini recognizes him. A boy wakes up screaming from a nightmare. Nini runs to him on the street, but she is seized by a sharp pain, which is why Ian stops the girl and asks her to return to rest. Nini tries to convince the butler that she feels fine, but the strong trembling in her body gives her away. John sends Nini back to the house and heads off to see the young master. He justifies himself by saying that he had a nightmare, and Nini, who had not yet entered the house, again begins to cough up blood and loses consciousness. Nini is lying in her chambers again. At this time, the elder brothers of the Eiplet family have come to visit. The girl coughs up blood again and stains the bed linen. Lloyd wants to intervene and help Nini, but his older brother stops him. Lloyd believes that his father would not leave the girl in trouble, for which he receives a slap on the back of the head from his older brother. He believes that Nini will not survive in any case, and let her die in that case without their help. Their conversation is interrupted by Endal, who bursts into the chambers. Leon tries to find out who he is, but the dragon simply ignores him. He is discussing Nini's condition. The elder son points his sword at him and asks his question again. Endal states his name. After a couple more attempts to find out the stranger's identity, the brothers receive an answer from him. Endal introduces himself as a doctor. This conversation is picked up by Riley, who appears in the doorway and confirms his friend's words. He allegedly brought Endal from Rinfield. Riley makes up a story about being worried about his mother's chronic illness. That's why he brought a doctor from another city. Leon is still unhappy with their guest's behavior, but Endal puts him down, saying that he should be grateful that he remained alive. After he pointed his sword at the supposed doctor, enraged, Leon draws his blade again, but Endal stops him with his dragon eye, which makes the eldest son unable to move. Nini wakes up from another nightmare. When asked how long she slept, Riley tells her that she was unconscious for half a day. Hearing this, the girl gets up and leaves the room, as it is time for her to continue her work. Riley realizes that she can't survive this way for long. It's time for her to leave the Eiplet house. That same evening, Nini leaves the estate. All the servants in the house say goodbye to her. A couple of hours before her departure, the girl said goodbye to Sarah and Ian. Sarah didn't know that Nini was ill and apologized to her for a long time. As a parting gift, Sarah gives the girl his favorite scarf, and Jan his sword, reminding her that she was now also part of the family of great swordsmen. The butler asks the girl to definitely get better and return for the sake of Mr. Riley. Iris also comes to say goodbye. She also has a gift for the girl. She ties a blue ribbon in Nini's hair. Riley hands the girl an apple as a parting gift. This apple is a reference to their conversation a couple of days ago. Then Nini begged the master to leave her with him until she died, but Riley told her that her disease was curable. He will definitely save Nini so that she can return and pick apples for him. As he leaves Eiplet's estate, Endal asks Nini to call him mentor. Now she becomes his student. As she leaves, the girl promises to recover and return to the estate. At the same time, somewhere on the front lines, important people are negotiating martial law. A gang called Anthurium was the first to attack the borders. The mustachioed mercenary we already knew fought on their side. He has extraordinary strength, and if it weren't for Count Ipellet, the battle would have been lost. However, even the strongest swordsman suffered in this battle, and very seriously. Stein Ipellet lost his right arm, and it cannot be reattached. The entire team of the mercenary Cabal, including himself, are declared wanted. That night in Eiplet's mansion, Lloyd reflects on how much his brother has changed, but he tries to push these thoughts away from himself. Steinfin Ippolita returns home. The sons run to meet him. Nara Basilisk, who is still present in the house, sees the ill-fated purple aura. The priest of Rivos arrived with the head of the house of Eiplet. All three sons are perplexed as to how such a misfortune could have happened to their father. The same one calmly shows a portrait of the mercenary who attacked him. Finn reveals more information about the Cabal. Riley remembers a familiar face. During the battle, Cabal shook the air with one swing of his weapon. The entire battle came to the point where the famous swordsman and the mercenary were left to fight one-on-one. Finn tried to protect the injured knight, as a result of which he lost his arm. Even Riley is shocked by this incident. He made a promise that in this life he would not allow any of his family members to die, so what happened to his father greatly disturbs him. In connection with what happened, Count Ipellet announces that the time has come to choose heirs. Due to the Anthurium gang that attacked the borders, many villages in the kingdom of Solia suffered. As a task for choosing an heir, the father asks his sons to help the suffering people. Before leaving on a mission, Riley catches up with Nara. She tells him about the priest's purple energy. This further convinces Riley that something is wrong with him. The boy heads to the village of Aliwi. It is not densely populated and is surrounded by dense forest. There are rumors that orcs are hanging around the village. Upon entering the village, the crew consisting of Ian and Riley are met by a local elder. He is the head of the village. His name is Malta. Riley immediately notices that there are very few people in the village. Despite the current situation, even if some of them hid or ran away, there is absolutely no one on the streets. The chief replies that just recently 10 people went missing. 4 days ago, children started disappearing in the village. Riley begins to have flashbacks from her past life. Then, in the battle in the city center, he also had to save children, but they were in a zombie state. With the powers he was given, Riley was able to bring the children back to their senses. However, the children asked him for death as a way to save themselves. They were tired of pain and suffering. At that moment, he had no choice but to fulfill the request of those children. The flow of his memories is interrupted by Ian. He asks how Riley is going to look for the children. The young master believes that the children are still in the vicinity of the village. And according to his logic, the remaining villagers with children must be killed. The boss doesn't understand why Riley made this decision. The old man asks for mercy, and Riley doesn't understand why he thought he was going to kill him. Jan notes that his master is completely unable to formulate sentences. Taking up swords, Riley heads off to save the children from the orcs. Jan is worried about him because he promised not to take up arms, but something has changed in him. Riley asks her butler to just be there and help when needed. A little while later, Riley and Ian find a crowd of orcs. The young master immediately rushes towards them despite Ian's screams. He instantly deals with all enemies. Jan notices his master's incredible speed and the fact that he moves differently from everyone else in Eiplet's family. Due to the great distance, Riley communicates with Ian through telepathy. What surprises him, since he does not understand when the young master managed to take possession of her. According to the village chief, there were 150 orcs. Riley is missing several individuals. He continues to chop down one orc after another. Due to the huge number of enemies, his sword is already cracking and crumbling. To buy more time, Riley decides to search for the children by following their energy trails. He senses at least 14 people nearby, but the energy is getting weaker, so Riley decides to hurry. The trail leads him to a cave. The energy is dissipating more and more, and the young gentleman is afraid that he did not make it in time. Entering the cave, he sees something that looks like clay. There he comes across the corpses of orcs and wonders about their killer. Almost immediately he runs into children. They are glad to have another person present, as they were afraid that an orc had come for them. Riley asks if there was anyone else with the kids, and they answer that some beggar hid them at the exit of the cave. The man they call the epidemic. He left something there, and Riley goes in search of this something. An unknown plague sufferer left a message on the wall for the man who will come to save the children. It turns out that he is sick with the plague, and he tried his best not to infect the children and to help them, but some had very weak immunity and needed to be taken to a doctor as quickly as possible. And judging by the fact that some children are suffering from itching, someone has managed to become infected. Riley leads all the children out of the cave and is met by Ian. He asks the rescued to tell more about the man they met. In addition to cute details about his hair length and kindness, children share information about the fact that the man was not breathing. One boy, out of curiosity, asked the epidemic man why he was not breathing, to which he wrote on the wall that his breathing would put children in danger. Riley came to the conclusion that this was why the orcs died. Also interesting is that their remains were purple in color. The epidemic has long been far from the scene of the incident. He hopes the children are okay. He is met by Cabal and addresses the man as his left leg. The mercenary is surprised to meet the left leg in Solia. There is another girl with him. The epidemician stops the Cabal's attacks and asks him to move away. After all, if he breathes the air next to him, then no priest of Rivos will help him. Cabal reminds us that he is one of the 6 parts of the body, and therefore their comrade. In that case, it is unclear why he behaves this way. The epidemician tells him that he no longer intends to participate in their plans. Cabal notes that he didn't like him from the start, and in the village, Riley has already returned all the children he found to their families. He asks the head of the village to take the victims to the temple as soon as possible and treat them immediately. Following his instructions, the cart with the children immediately goes to the healer. Left alone, Ian asks Riley how he was able to learn the art of the sword since he never trained with him. Riley replies that he was simply imagining the moves and fights in his head. Ian also wants to know more about Riley's telepathy, but he pretends not to know anything about it. Even though Jan didn't get any clear answers, he was still happy, because he always believed in his young master. Their conversation is interrupted by a postal eagle. He sits on John's hand. Nara sent the eagle. Her letter says that enemies are approaching and the black mage from Rinfield has survived. Jan also read the note and does not understand what the young master is hiding from him. Riley, as always, pretends not to understand what is being said. But this time Ian gets his way, and after an hour of telling stories, Riley finishes her story. Jan believes him and asks the master to make a decision as soon as possible, because if what is written in the note is true, then he needs to return to the center of Solia as soon as possible. Riley reminds them that they are currently choosing an heir, and they can't just leave. But Jan was already fired up with the idea of killing the black magician again. Even though Ian always wanted Riley to be his heir, this time he put human lives above his dreams. Riley understands this. He agrees to head to the center of Solia, even though he really doesn't want to lose his quiet time. At this time, representatives of different races meet in an unknown tavern. They haven't seen each other for a long time, and it turns out that they are waiting for Endal, but he is late because of his student. In the middle of their conversation, Endal finally appears. He is also followed by Nini. There should be one more participant among those present, but he is missing. The whole company turns its attention to Nini. Goblin wonders if she could resist his guard, to which Endal states that Nini could stand up to even 5 high elves. Getting the conversation back on track, the elf says that she gathered everyone together because of a strange energy she felt in Rinfield. Compared to normal mana, it was a dark and negative energy, and there were 3 people with it in Rinfield. According to the elf, these people threaten the balance. They independently decide the fate of people and interfere in matters of life and death. Also, with the help of her spiritual powers, the elf saw that Riley and Nini had already encountered similar energy in the past. So she asks the girl to tell her the details. Nini tells those present about the black magician. To a druid, the black mage's resurrection skill doesn't seem that special, since Endal can do it in no time. But the magician, unlike the dragon, gives birth not only to the body, but also to the soul of a dead person. And that's a completely different conversation. Nini ends her story by saying that her young master was able to kill the black magician, and because of this, all the bodies disappeared. The elf asks Nina to find their enemy using her eye under the scar. Nini is surprised that it actually works. After all, she thought that their enemy had long been dead. Riley and Ian have already arrived in central Solia. The young gentleman suggests having a snack first, but Yang thinks that this matter is more important than food. But it is worth preparing for the fight and being strong, so he agrees. Also, because the young master is currently fighting for the position of heir, he needs to move around secretly. Because of this, Riley wants to choose a mask, and at the counter she remembers Nini. Jan notices that the young master's face has turned red, but he simply brushes off the remark. Riley still chooses masks for herself and Ian. In Solia, immediately after the purchase, they meet a column of mages from the magic tower led by Ferda. The judges are directed to go to Lower Solia. Riley and Ian head after them. The magicians stop near the stairs that lead down. Dark energy oozes from there. Ferda asks her charges to evacuate people. A corpse crawls down the stairs, looking like it was the work of a black magician. Ferda tries to stop him with magic, but a crowd of the same corpses emerges after him. Ian wants to intervene, but Riley says they need to meet Nara first. Ferda blocks the passage with magic. Corpses cannot pass through the barrier. At this time, somewhere in Solia, Bishop Rivos meets with the seemingly dead Master of Astroi. And he is really dead, only his shell, in which the black magician was placed, is alive. Revosa asks the fake Astroya not to lose any more limbs or die. The black magician promises that together they can take revenge. He brings to life a crowd of corpses that are ready to attack the wizards at any moment. The mages come across the revived Astrobe and the bishop. They are surrounded by living corpses. Ferda wants to request help from Solia Castle and the Magic Tower, but his teammates are lifted into the air by purple tentacles. While the city is in chaos, Saint Frisia again prays to the goddess Irenessa. She still hadn't dealt with the bishop, much less the dragon. The girl is afraid she won't be able to cope on her own. The goddess answers her prayers. She asks the girl to find the child of the black butterfly, who will help her achieve her goal. At this time, Ian, Nara, and Riley discuss what happened. Nara asks if they've seen the walking corpse invasion yet, and Riley replies that it was just like Rinfield. Nara reports that Revosa was in Lower Solia, and Riley deduces that he clearly had something to do with what happened. Jan recalls a story connected with such monsters. 26 years ago, when he was still a mercenary hero, Yang saw the same black, empty eyes. He arrived at a village where, according to rumors from the residents, there lived a certain witch who also had such eyes. But she was called a witch precisely because of them. She herself was not one. In fact, the girl was a master swordsman, and later became Ian's mentor and taught him her art. Sometime after they met, Ian asked her why the girl's eyes looked like that. She replied that she had been given a blessing, although she did not want it. And it turned out that the girl's power was from another world. This greatly surprises Riley, but before they could answer, they heard a crash. Jan looks out the window and sees the collapsed magic tower. But that's not all, because the magic tower fell right on the temple. The butler worries that the saint might be praying at that time. Riley decides to use the masks she bought. Corpses rise around the fallen tower. People flee in panic, and the knights try to evacuate them. In addition to the rocks that have crushed many people, they are also threatened by the living corpses. One of them attacks the girl, but Jan stops the zombie. The girl asks to help her child, but the butler does not have time to do this, as someone is going to take care of him with the help of magic. Jan points a sword at a stranger in a robe, but it turns out to be a saint, and she asks him to put the sword away. The swordsman recognizes her, but the girl, because of the mask, does not recognize him as a familiar figure. She pulls the child out from under the rubble and hands him over to his mother. Frisia asks the whole company who they are, not recognizing them because of their masks, but they refuse to answer the question. Overall, the saint trusts them because they help people and decides not to interrogate them. A crowd of living dead attacks Riley and Naru from behind. Riley, as always, is a master of swordsmanship, and Nara is not far behind him. Frisia asks not to kill zombies. She can apparently heal them with her holy magic. However, stopping their invasion without killing them will be extremely difficult. In addition, those who died from the magic tower also became zombies that can use magic. Ian suggests that Riley retreat, but then a familiar voice is heard. Revosa, along with Astroy's body and the captured Ferda, greet the heroes. Saint Frisia and Riley are confused as to how Astroya survived. The young gentleman blames Revosa for what happened, but he does not answer his question and asks the black mage in Astroy's body to do something with the attackers. Uriel throws back the captive Ferda. Saint Frisia comes to his aid. Ferda reveals that there is someone else in the former master's body. Riley, feeling the energy, realizes that it is a dark mage. However, he must also be dead. Frisia doesn't understand why Revos is in league with the villains, even though she didn't trust him before, and he replies that such information would be unnecessary for her, while removing the leather mask from his face. Under the face of the kind young priest there turns out to be a bald old man. Since Revosa has shown his true face, Riley decides to take off his mask too. Evriel notices how Astroy's body reacts to Riley and concludes that he is involved in his murder, to which the young gentleman reminds the dark magician that he had, in a way, killed him too. And finally, Uriel remembers him. He is angry that this man interrupted their prayer. Revos also recognizes Riley. Ferda watches from the side and is surprised by the familiar faces. Refreshed, so to speak, Revosa discusses Riley's sword abilities, despite his nickname, Lazy Sword. The bishop is not afraid of his outstanding skills, because he now knows what Revosa really looks like, so the priest is going to kill him. But Riley, on the other hand, doesn't intend to kill them. He only wants to ruin their plans. The young gentleman guesses that these two and their team are going to open the gates to the underworld. Both of his opponents don't understand how he found out. And Riley replies that it doesn't matter, and he could kindly let them go. But huge purple tentacles appear and interrupt his speech. Even Riley is scared by this danger. Tentacles wrap around his leg, and he orders the people fighting on his side to escape. An exhausted Frisia is attacked by a zombie mage. He throws a fireball at her. Jan tries to come to her aid, but the girl won't have time to dodge. For the last time, she turns to the goddess Irenessa. The saint remembers her words about the black butterfly's child, and just in time, someone deflects the blow with black-violet energy. Nini, who appeared on the battlefield just in time, is glad that she was not late. She immediately apologizes to Riley for the fact that her training took a little longer. But he is also surprised to meet his servant on the battlefield. Uriel doesn't understand how the girl was able to use inverse space. After all, this is a magical technique that is mastered by magicians of the 7th circle and above. Ferda also notices this, and recalls that only in the spring did the girl reach the 6th circle. That is, she earned the 7th in a very short time. Nini asks Riley to explain the situation to her, and he tells her about Frisia's request not to kill any of the risen dead. She can wipe the two main attackers off the face of the earth. Determined to deal with her enemies, Nini enters the battle. Using the sword given to her by Ian as a farewell gift, the girl strikes the zombies with purple fire. They are now immobilized, but not dead. She uses the same fire on dead mages, but with her hand, not her sword. She finds another use for the sword and throws it straight at the zombie standing behind Ian, and the sword flies dangerously close to his face. During her absence, Nini had treated him with care, and Ian was glad to see her unharmed. The main enemies notice a strong change on the battlefield and immediately turn around to face Nine's attack from behind. They fight back successfully. Revosa notices that Riley has no intention of interfering in the battle. The priest orders Uriel to deal with the girl first. He casts a pillar of fire towards her, hoping that it will work on the girl. However, she is wearing a fireproof cloak, and the spell goes nowhere. Nine immediately responds with a powerful spell, giving his team the upper hand. Revosa understands this and offers his accomplice to use their secret weapon. Even the black magician is shocked that he is going to reveal their main trump card, but the bishop says that they have no choice. Uriel must distract Nini for 30 seconds until Revosa can use this very weapon. The bishop begins his preparations. Riley notices this. He asks Nini to finish off Revosa quickly. The girl casts a powerful spell at him, but Uriel blocks it. The black mage asks his ally to finish the preparation quickly, as he won't last long. Revosa doesn't keep us waiting long. The ground beneath the hero's feet begins to shake. A few seconds later, a black dragon bursts out from under the stone. Riley is amazed at how the enemies he didn't take seriously were able to summon a dragon that wasn't perfect, but a dragon. Uriel himself was pleasantly surprised at how huge the dragon turned out to be. His reasoning is interrupted by Revos, who asks him to begin. Uriel obeys. He points purple tentacles at the dragon and binds it, which gives the dragon new abilities and powers. The lizard is being fed with dark magic. Riley realizes that the enemies have called for him not to live. The dragon begins to suck in air. Riley is held in the ground by a sword. Nini remembers Endal's words. He asked her to avoid the dragon's breath by all means. The only thing that can stop this move is the breath of another dragon. If you don't dodge it, then death will follow. Bleeding from every crack, the dark mage in Astroy's body sacrifices the souls of the main characters to the undead dragon. It's still part of their prayer plan. Nine realizes that she cannot stop the dragon's breath. Riley locks the girl in with him. He reminds her that he promised to help her. Nini asks him to move away, but he himself understands that it is too late. He hugs the girl and asks her to return the apple to him in the next life. Standing under the direction of the violet flame. Nini apologizes to Miss Iris for causing the master to die. While Revosa smiles wickedly, Uriel is delighted that he will finally be able to kill his sworn enemies. However, suddenly the square is engulfed in bright orange natural flames. The villains don't understand where it came from, and then a red dragon appears on the square. With your breath. He knocks out the breath of the undead dragon. Nini, eyes closed, ready to take the blow. But Riley asks her to come to her senses, since there are no scratches on them. The girl awkwardly slips out of Riley's arms. They exchange with meaningful glances. Their moment is interrupted by Endal in dragon form. He asks Nini not to overdo it. Revosa cannot understand where another dragon, and a real one at that, appeared on the battlefield. And then he remembers Frisia's revelation. Uriel screams and asks the bishop to do something, but he simply stands frozen in stupor. Immediately after this request, a dragon's paw falls to the ground between him and the dark magician. Revosa tries with all his might to move, but Endal turns his dragon gaze on him and takes away that opportunity. Revosa orders the still wailing Uriel not to move. Right now, the best outcome for them is to do nothing. Riley asks his dragon friend what they will do with the undead, to which Endal replies that he doesn't know this dragon, which means he just needs to be killed. Which is what he does on his own, tearing the undead to shreds with his claws. The dragon gets a little carried away, and Riley says that's enough. Now it's time to deal with the bishop. Revosa understands the danger he is in, but Uriel continues to rant about the unfinished prayer, for which he immediately receives a reminder about Riley, who has been dead for a long time. The young gentleman neutralizes Astroya in a way that is already known. He cuts off both his hands. However, Riley won't let him die so easily and uses time magic on him. Revosa is slowly going crazy from what is happening. Riley notices his smile and begins his interrogation. The bishop bursts into laughter. The young gentleman suggests that they still have an ace up their sleeve. Riley is interested in specific facts about the prayer, about the dragon's corpse. But the most important question is the afterlife, to which they were going to open the gates. Rivos is amused that the young gentleman has finally become interested in their prayer. The smug expression disappears from the bishop's face when Uriel begins to talk about their prayer. He states that they are going to open the underworld by collecting souls in this world, and the dragon's body was given to them by a man he doesn't have time to finish telling them about. Because Revosa interrupts him and accuses him of blabber-talking, Riley asks again what he means by the underworld, but Uriel again doesn't have time to finish. His face begins to distort from the tumors. Eventually, the dark mage's head in Astroy's body simply explodes. Riley watches in shock as this happens. The culprit is, of course, the bishop. He couldn't allow Uriel to continue telling about their prayer to an outsider. Riley doesn't understand what these two were hiding so carefully that one of them even had to kill his comrade. However, this no longer matters because the bishop will still die by his sword. Riley deals a fatal blow to Rivos, but he is protected by a barrier. It was cast on the bishop by an elf friend of Endal who appeared on the battlefield. The girl asks to save this man's body. Riley senses dragon energy from her. The girl confirms his suspicions. She is the leader of the dragons named Isiltur. She tells the young master that they have been given the mission of maintaining balance and destiny. So they have to keep this person's body alive. Riley is unhappy about being stopped. However, the girl states that it would be more logical to first extract information from the enemy and then kill him. But Riley doesn't want to leave him alive. The girl says that with this scenario, perhaps everything will be fine and calm for the next 100 years. However, later something may happen again that will be unstoppable. Riley is angry. He wants to live peacefully here and now, and let the people from the future deal with future problems. He tries to pierce the barrier that the head of the dragons has imposed, and the girl notices the huge amount of magic Riley has. She ties him up with chains and asks him to stop for the sake of the future of humanity. Riley is getting angrier and angrier, and is not going to give in to the girl either. He cuts her bonds with his sword. The girl, unable to do anything, begs Riley not to kill the bishop, but he remains adamant and raises his sword above his head. At this time, an unknown voice addresses Rivos, saying that he woke him up too early. A black-purple hand appears out of nowhere, pushing the head of the dragons away and extending its claws towards Revosa. Along the way, she breaks Riley's sword. The hand tries to drag the bishop away, and Riley intends to catch up with it. And then he meets a completely black creature that reminds him of what he did in his past life. Thanks to the young master, this creature witnessed a very interesting spectacle, so in return, it is ready to give him a small gift. However, he has specific ideas about gifts, as Riley is sent flying a huge distance from a powerful blow from the purple hand. Isildur tries to detain the kidnapper and Revosa, whom he kidnaps. Nini is on the same team with her and stands in the front row. However, instead of stopping the kidnapper's hand, the girl places a seal on it, after which the opponents disappear. The dragon immediately asks the girl to track where these creatures ended up. Nini sees with her eye that they have arrived at the place from the young master's dream. Nini begins to wonder why she keeps seeing this place. Is it connected to her master? They call this world the underground world, and it was in Riley's strange dream. The girl assumes that he is hiding something from them. At this time, Riley returns from the place where he was nailed. He immediately asks Nini if she found the escapees, to which the girl immediately asks him a counter-question. In a whisper, she tells Riley that she saw his dream. It had strange carts, huge buildings, and black earth. She also saw people there who were fighting monsters. She thought it was too realistic to be a normal dream. She decided to figure out the person or non-person with the black hand, and it turned out that he was in the world of Riley's dreams. Therefore, the girl does not think that this is just a coincidence. She asks her master to tell her if he has ever been to this place before. She asks him directly whether he came from that world, but Riley stops her and asks her to erase from her memory everything she saw there. This conversation and everything that happened was apparently overheard by a certain person around the corner. The outline of his robe resembles the robes of Iplet's older brothers. The next day, Riley reads the newspaper, which has already written about what happened during the night. The newspaper rephrased the information to mean that all the crimes connected with last night and the living corpses were committed by religious fanatics. Nini, Frisia, and Ian are sitting at a separate table. The sorceress's interlocutors are very happy that her health has now improved significantly. Endal lashes out at Riley because he's not listening to him at all. He was lost in his own thoughts and hadn't heard anything. The dragon is also going to discuss Nini's illness with the young master. It turns out that she is not completely cured. Her life was only made easier with the help of magic. During the training, the dragon removed all the artificial circles around Nini's heart and taught her his magic, bringing her to the same level and even higher than she was before. But the biggest problem is her right eye. There is a lot of dirty and negative energy inside it, and it is impossible to cleanse it. While Nini is human, this is a very serious threat to her life. We need to find solutions to the problem. However, if she is reborn into a more resilient creature, then she has a better chance of survival. Endal declares that the girl must give up her human shell. Nine already knows about this, and she and Endal want to get Riley's consent. Riley asks what will happen if Nini gives up her human shell, to which, instead of a direct answer, Endal summons a certain creature. A spirit serving Endal appears before him. He appears as a little fire fairy. She introduces herself as Heliona, a fairy who is the daughter of the Spirit King. The fairy explains that the reincarnated Nini will be an artificially created spirit. Along the way, Heliona talks about how Riley doesn't seem so friendly and doesn't look like a handsome guy. The spirit does not understand what Nini saw in him. The girl had already told her about her master. To stop this mess, Riley tries to grab the fairy, but he can't, because her body is immaterial. Helione simply dissolves part of her body into thin air. Endal is about to tell how this happens, but he understands that if he starts, it will drag on for a very long time. And Helion only egged him on more to tell her that he really irritated the dragon. But he couldn't do anything to her because of his influential father. The fairy hides behind Nini, and the girl is still engrossed in her conversation with Jan and Nara. But Indal still tells us that these creatures retain all human memories and their advantages when they are reborn. However, this method also has its drawbacks. The dragon clarifies this issue at Riley's request. In order for entities to continue to exist, they must be constantly fed with mana. Also, artificial spirits should avoid meeting with normal spirits as they do not like them. However, these problems are also solvable, and Riley thinks that this is not a bad idea. Indal takes his reaction as a positive answer and gets up from the table. Now he needs to head west, as something suspicious is happening there. He asks Hellion to stay with Nini, as she will need the Fire Fairy's help in her transformation.